Rain hammered Manhattan's glass towers like bullets as Celina Arden stood trembling in her bedroom, about to sabotage the rest of her life on purpose. Tonight, her parents were forcing her into an arranged marriage with Kang Min-Jae, the most feared Korean mafia boss in New York, a man whose name made billionaires whisper and politicians cross the street. So Celina made herself into a disaster. Neon cargo pants, ripped band tees, smudged eyeliner thick enough to scare anyone with functioning eyes. If they wanted a trophy wife, she'd give them chaos. But when she walked into that private dining room at the Pierre Hotel, the Korean mafia boss looked at her like he'd been waiting his entire life for someone exactly this broken. And instead of walking away, he smiled. Before we dive into Celina's story, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. AMBW. The rain had turned vicious by the time Celina's reflection stared back at her from the full-length mirror in her childhood bedroom. 24 years old, and she looked like a stranger wearing her own skin. The neon orange cargo pants hung low on her hips, held up by a studded belt she'd bought 3 hours ago from a thrift shop in Brooklyn. The black band tee was ripped strategically across the collar, exposing one shoulder. Combat boots laced to mid-calf. Eyeliner smudged thick and deliberate around her eyes until she looked like she'd either been crying or fighting or both. Perfect. Her phone buzzed against the dresser. Another text from her mother. The car is waiting. Don't embarrass us tonight, Celina. Celina's jaw tightened. Embarrassment was exactly the point. She grabbed her leather jacket, the one her boyfriend Elias had left at her apartment weeks ago and never bothered to retrieve, and walked out of her bedroom without looking back at the elegant dresses still hanging untouched in her closet. Dresses her mother had picked out. Dresses that cost more than most people's rent. Dresses designed to make her look like the perfect daughter of the Arden financial empire. Tonight, she wasn't playing that role. The black town car idled outside her building, exhaust curling into the wet air. The driver's face remained professionally blank as Celina climbed into the back seat, but she caught the flicker of surprise in his eyes before he looked away. Good. If the hired help was already rattled, her parents would be furious. Manhattan blurred past the tinted windows. Rain streaked the glass in jagged lines. Celina's heart hammered against her ribs as the car merged into traffic, heading toward the Pierre Hotel, where her entire future was waiting to be negotiated like a corporate merger. Because that's all this was, a merger. Her father, Richard Arden, had built his wealth the old-fashioned way. Real estate, strategic investments, political connections that ran deeper than most people realized. But lately, competition had gotten brutal. Rival firms were circling. Federal investigations were threatening the family's offshore accounts. Richard needed protection that money alone couldn't buy. Enter Kang Min-Jae. The Korean mafia boss controlled half of Manhattan's underground economy without ever appearing in a single arrest record. Casinos that laundered millions. Private security networks that made evidence disappear. Political influence that extended from New York to Seoul. He was 32 years old and more powerful than men twice his age. And apparently he needed a wife. Not for love, not even for companionship. For legitimacy. The Kang family wanted to transition from shadow power to public influence, and marrying into the Arden dynasty would give them exactly that. A clean American pedigree, elite social access, and the veneer of respectability that organized crime always craved. Celina's mother had explained it over brunch 3 weeks ago, like she was discussing a charity gala. It's a strategic alliance, darling. The Kang family brings security, we bring status. Everyone benefits. Except me, Celina had said quietly. Her mother's smile hadn't wavered. You'll benefit most of all. Do you know how many women would kill to marry into that kind of power? Celina had wanted to scream that she didn't care about power, that she had a boyfriend, that she had a life that didn't include being sold off like a corporate asset. But her mother's eyes had gone cold in that way they always did when Celina showed signs of resistance. Your father's empire is fragile right now. One wrong move and everything we've built collapses. The Kang Alliance protects us. You're going to smile, be charming, and make this work. Or you can watch our family lose everything while you play house with that musician boyfriend who can't even pay his own rent. The words had hit like acid. Because Elias Reed was broke. He'd been broke for the 3 years they'd been together. Every month brought a new crisis. Studio time he couldn't afford, producers who needed upfront payment, equipment that broke at the worst possible moment. And every month, Celina quietly transferred money into his account while he promised that success was just around the corner. She loved him, or at least she loved the version of him that existed in her head. But lately, even that was getting harder to believe in. The town car pulled up to the Pierre Hotel's private entrance. Rain drummed against the roof. Through the window, Celina could see two men in dark suits standing on either side of the doorway, their faces professionally blank, their postures radiating controlled violence. Security. Not hotel security. Kang Min-Jae's security. Celina's stomach twisted. The driver opened her door. "Miss Arden?" She stepped out into the rain, and immediately one of the suited men appeared beside her with an umbrella, shielding her from the downpour without a word. His eyes scanned the street constantly, looking for threats that probably didn't exist but treating every shadow like it might. This was the world she was about to enter, a world where violence lived just beneath the surface of every polite interaction. The suited man led her through the marble lobby toward a private elevator. No one spoke. The elevator rose smoothly, and Celina caught her reflection in the polished metal doors. The neon cargo pants looked even more absurd in this environment. The smudged eyeliner made her look unhinged. Exactly as planned. The elevator doors opened directly into a private dining room that probably cost more per night than most people earned in a year. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, rain hammering against the glass. A single table sat in the center of the room, elegant and intimate, set for two. And at the far end of the room, near the windows, stood Kang Min-Jae. Celina's breath caught. She'd seen photos. Grainy surveillance images her father had shown her during one of his lectures about the Kang family's power. But photographs hadn't prepared her for the reality of him. Min-Jae was tall, lean, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire rebellious outfit combined. His black hair was styled back from his face, revealing sharp cheekbones and a jawline that looked like it had been carved by someone who understood violence intimately. Tattoos curved up from his collar, dark ink barely visible against his skin, disappearing beneath the expensive fabric. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. Dark. Unreadable. Intelligent in a way that made Celina's stomach drop because she suddenly realized this wasn't a man who could be fooled by a costume and some smudged makeup. He was studying her the way predators studied prey. Not with hunger. With calculation. Two more men stood in the shadows near the corners of the room. Security again. Silent. Watching. Min-Jae's expression didn't change as Celina walked toward the table. He didn't look shocked. He didn't look offended. He looked amused. "Miss Arden," he said quietly in Korean accented English. His voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of voice that never needed to be raised to command attention. "Thank you for coming." Celina stopped a few feet from the table. Her heart hammered. Rain lashed the windows behind him. "I didn't really have a choice," she said flatly. Min-Jae's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Neither did I. But we both showed up anyway. That's something." He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Please, sit." Celina hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around and walk out. But the suited men were still watching from the corners. The elevator required a key card. And somewhere in this city, her parents were probably already celebrating a merger they thought was inevitable. She sat down. Min-Jae settled into his own chair with the kind of controlled grace that came from years of dangerous living. His tattooed fingers rested against the stem of a crystal wine glass, and Celina noticed the scars along his knuckles, old marks that told stories he probably never shared. "I like what you did with your appearance," Min-Jae said calmly. "Very deliberate." Celina's jaw tightened. "I'm not trying to impress you. I know." He took a slow sip of wine, his dark eyes never leaving her face. "You're trying to scare me away. Make yourself as unmarriageable as possible so I reject the arrangement and your parents can't blame you for the failure." Heat crawled up Celina's neck. He'd read her entire strategy in under 30 seconds. "Smart," Min-Jae continued. "If I was the kind of man who cared about appearances, it might have even worked." "But you're not," Celina said, her voice sharp. "No." Min-Jae set down his glass. I'm the kind of man who appreciates honesty. And what you did tonight, showing up looking like you'd rather set yourself on fire than marry me, that's the first honest thing anyone's done in my presence in years." Celina stared at him. The rain drummed harder against the windows. "Everyone lies to me," Min-Jae said quietly. "Business partners, politicians, family members. They smile and bow and tell me what they think I want to hear because they're afraid of what happens if they don't. But you walked in here wearing neon cargo pants and combat boots like a middle finger aimed directly at this entire arrangement." He leaned forward slightly. "That took courage." "It took desperation," Celina corrected. "Same thing, sometimes." A waiter appeared from nowhere, placing plates of food in front of them that Celina didn't remember ordering. The waiter disappeared just as quickly. The two security men in the corners didn't move. Min-Jae picked up his fork. "Eat. We have a lot to discuss, and you'll need your strength." "I'm not hungry." "You're terrified," Min-Jae said calmly. "I can see it. The way your hands are trembling, the way you keep glancing at the exits. But fear and hunger aren't mutually exclusive. Eat." It wasn't a request. Celina picked up her fork, hating that he was right. The food was probably incredible. This was the Pierre Hotel, after all. But she tasted nothing. "Let me guess," Min-Jae said after a moment. "You have a boyfriend, some creative type. Musician, probably. Artist. Photographer. Someone your parents don't approve of because he doesn't have money or connections or a last name that matters." Celina's grip tightened on her fork. "How did you—" "Because you're wearing his jacket," Min-Jae interrupted smoothly. "It's 3 sizes too big, smells like cigarettes and cheap cologne, and you keep touching the sleeve like it's armor." His dark eyes glinted. "You wore it tonight as a reminder to yourself that you're already spoken for. Another shield against this arrangement." Celina set down her fork. "You're very observant." "I'm alive because I'm observant." The words hung in the air between them. For the first time, Celina really looked at Kang Min-Jae. Not the suit, not the power. The man beneath it all. And what she saw was exhausting. The weight of an empire carried on shoulders that never got to rest. The constant calculation. The awareness of every threat, every angle, every person in the room who might become an enemy. He lived in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was inevitable. No wonder he appreciated honesty. "What do you want from me?" Celina asked quietly. Min-Jae set down his own fork. "Your father wants protection. My family wants legitimacy. The arrangement between the Ardens and the Kangs is built on mutual need, not affection." He paused. "But what I want is simpler." "What?" "I want to know if you're strong enough to survive what comes next." Celina's pulse quickened. "What comes next?" Min-Jae leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "If we go through with this marriage, your life changes completely. No more hiding behind your parents' wealth. No more pretending you're just a corporate analyst with a normal life. You become part of my world, and my world doesn't forgive weakness." "I'm not weak," Celina said, her voice harder than she expected. "Prove it." The challenge hung between them. Outside, lightning split the sky above Central Park. Thunder followed seconds later, rattling the windows. "You came here tonight trying to sabotage this arrangement," Min-Jae said calmly. "But you're still sitting across from me, still listening. That tells me you're smart enough to know that rebellion without strategy is just noise." He tilted his head slightly. "So here's what I'm offering. 1 month." Celina frowned. 1 month? "A trial period. You attend events with me. Learn how my world operates. See if you can handle the reality of being connected to the Kang family. At the end of 30 days, we both decide if this arrangement continues or if we walk away clean. And my parents. We'll be told that we're taking time to get to know each other properly. They won't interfere." Min-Jae's eyes darkened. "I'm very good at making people stay out of my business." Celina's mind raced. A month was better than forever. A month gave her time to figure out an escape plan, to convince Min-Jae that she wasn't the right fit, to maybe find some leverage that would let her walk away without destroying her family in the process. But something in Min-Jae's expression told her he knew exactly what she was thinking, and he was letting her think it anyway. "What happens if I say no?" Celina asked. "You walk out of here tonight. I tell your father the arrangement is off. The Kang family withdraws protection." Min-Jae's voice remained calm, but the threat beneath it was clear. Whatever's coming for the Arden Empire arrives without interference. You'd really let my family burn? Yes. No hesitation. I don't make empty threats, Miss Arden, and I don't waste time on arrangements that won't benefit me. If you're not strong enough for this world, it's better we both know now. Celina's hands curled into fists beneath the table. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away. But the logical part of her brain, the part that had spent years analyzing corporate mergers and hostile takeovers, understood what Min-Jae was really offering: time, information, and maybe, if she was smart enough, a way out that didn't end in total destruction. 1 month, Celina said finally, but I have conditions. Min-Jae's mouth curved slightly. I'm listening. My boyfriend stays out of this. You don't threaten him. You don't investigate him. You leave him alone. Agreed. And at the end of 30 days, if either of us wants to walk away, the arrangement ends. No retaliation against my family, no burned bridges, clean break. Min-Jae considered this for a long moment. Rain continued hammering the windows. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Agreed, he said finally. On one condition of my own. What? During this month, you don't lie to me about anything. I don't care if the truth is ugly or inconvenient or makes you look weak. Lies get people killed in my world. So if we're doing this, we do it honestly. Celina met his dark eyes. You want honesty? Fine. I think this whole arrangement is barbaric. I think my parents are selling me like property. And I think you're a dangerous man who probably ruins everything he touches. Min-Jae's smile widened slightly. There. Was that so hard? Yes. Good. He picked up his wine glass, studying her over the rim. Honesty should cost something, otherwise it's just noise. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their agreement settling between them like a contract written in blood. Finally, Min-Jae stood. My driver will take you home. Tomorrow night, there's a charity gala in the Hamptons. My family is one of the primary sponsors. You'll attend with me. What's the dress code? Celina asked, her voice laced with sarcasm. More neon cargo pants? Wear whatever makes you feel strong, Min-Jae said simply. You're going to need it. He walked toward the elevator, his security falling into step behind him like shadows. At the last second, he paused and looked back at her. One more thing, Miss Arden. What? The boyfriend, Min-Jae said quietly. The one you're protecting so carefully. Ask yourself why you're working 3 jobs to fund his dreams while he's never once asked what you need. The elevator doors closed before Celina could respond. She sat alone in the private dining room while rain battered the windows and thunder shook the Manhattan skyline. Min-Jae's words echoed in her head, digging into places she'd been carefully avoiding for months. Her phone buzzed. A text from Elias. Hey babe, studio session ran late. Can you spot me $500 for mixing costs? I'll pay you back next month, promise. Celina stared at the message for a long time. Then she looked out at the storm raging over Central Park. And somewhere deep in her chest, something old and tired finally cracked. Book it. The next evening, Celina stood in front of her closet trying to figure out what strong looked like. The charity gala was in 3 hours. Min-Jae's driver would arrive in 2. And Celina still had no idea what she'd agreed to beyond 30 days of controlled chaos. Her phone rang. Her mother's face filled the screen. Celina answered. Hi, Mom. Darling, I heard the dinner went well. Your father is thrilled. Her mother's voice practically vibrated with satisfaction. Kang Min-Jae's people contacted us this morning. Apparently you made quite an impression. I wore cargo pants and eyeliner. Yes, well, unconventional courtship strategies aside, the important thing is he's interested. We'll need to discuss your schedule for the next month. There are several key events. Mom, Celina interrupted, I need to handle this my own way. Silence on the other end of the line. Celina, her mother said carefully, this isn't a game. The Kang Alliance is critical for our family's security. If you do anything to jeopardize, I know. Celina's jaw tightened. Trust me, I know exactly what's at stake. Then act like it. The line went dead. Celina threw her phone onto the bed and turned back to her closet, strong. Min-Jae had told her to wear whatever made her feel strong. She pushed past the designer dresses her mother had bought. Elegant, expensive, designed to make her look like the perfect society wife. At the back of the closet, buried behind clothes she never wore, she found it. A black silk dress. Simple cut. No embellishments. She'd bought it 2 years ago for a corporate event and never worn it because her mother said it was too severe. Celina put it on. The dress fit like armor. Sharp lines, clean silhouette, nothing soft or apologetic about it. She swept her hair up into a tight bun, applied minimal makeup, and stared at her reflection. This version of herself looked dangerous. Good. The black SUV arrived exactly on time. But instead of a driver, Min-Jae himself stepped out onto the sidewalk, dressed in a midnight blue suit that probably cost more than Celina's entire closet. He looked at her for a long moment as rain misted the air between them. Better, he said finally. Better than what? Than trying to be someone you're not. He opened the door for her himself, and Celina climbed into the back of the armored vehicle. The interior smelled like leather and something darker, gun oil, maybe, or the particular scent of controlled violence. 2 more SUVs fell into formation behind them as they pulled away from the curb. Protection. Always protection. The Hamptons estate belongs to my family, Min-Jae explained as Manhattan blurred past the tinted windows. We host charity events there several times a year. Good for appearances, keeps the politicians friendly. Who's going to be there? Everyone who matters. Min-Jae glanced at her. Senators. CEOs. Old money, new money. Criminals pretending to be legitimate and legitimate people pretending they're not criminals. You'll see how the real world operates. Sounds exhausting. It is. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages with the kind of focused efficiency that suggested he was running an empire from the backseat of an SUV. But it's necessary. Power requires performance. Celina watched the city give way to highway. Is that what tonight is? A performance? Everything is a performance, Min-Jae said, without looking up from his phone. The question is whether you're performing for yourself or for someone else. They drove in silence for a while. Rain started falling harder, drumming against the roof of the SUV. Somewhere ahead, lightning split the darkening sky. Your boyfriend texted you 17 times today, Min-Jae said suddenly. Celina's head snapped toward him. How do you... I know everything about everyone in my orbit, Min-Jae interrupted calmly. It's how I stay alive. Your phone is monitored. Your apartment is monitored. Your office is monitored. Nothing you do over the next 30 days is private. Rage flared in Celina's chest. You have no right. I have every right, Min-Jae said flatly. You agreed to a trial period. That means I need to know if you're a liability. If your boyfriend becomes a problem, I need to know before it threatens my family's interests. He finally looked at her. Don't confuse this arrangement for friendship, Miss Arden. We're both using each other. The only question is who's smart enough to come out ahead. The words hit like cold water. Celina's hands curled into fists. You're an asshole. Yes, Min-Jae agreed easily. But I'm an honest asshole, which is more than most people in your life can say. He went back to his phone, leaving Celina staring out the window while fury and something uncomfortably close to shame twisted in her stomach. Because he was right about Elias. 17 texts, all of them asking for money, not one of them asking how she was doing. The Hamptons estate rose out of the coastal darkness like something from a crime thriller. Massive stone walls, iron gates, security checkpoints every 100 yards. Floodlights illuminated manicured gardens that probably required a staff of 20 to maintain. As their SUV rolled up the long driveway, Celina could see other vehicles already parked near the entrance. Bentleys, Maseratis, Rolls-Royces, cars that cost more than most people's houses. Remember, Min-Jae said as their vehicle stopped. You're here as my guest. That means you're under my protection. No one will touch you. But it also means everything you say and do reflects on me. Be smart. The door opened. Min-Jae stepped out first, and immediately the atmosphere changed. Security personnel straightened, valet attendants moved faster, even the rain seemed to fall more carefully around him. He offered Celina his hand. She took it, and together they walked into the kind of world that most people only saw in movies. The interior of the estate was obscene. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, art on the walls that belonged in museums. Hundreds of guests mingled in elegant clusters. Champagne glasses catching the light, laughter echoing off vaulted ceilings. But beneath the polish, Celina saw the truth. Armed men positioned at every exit. Politicians shaking hands with men whose faces she recognized from federal investigations. Business deals happening in quiet corners while waiters pretended not to notice. This wasn't a charity gala. This was a summit, where power brokers gathered to remind each other that the rules society believed in were just suggestions. Min-Jae's hand rested against the small of Celina's back, guiding her through the crowd. People parted for them automatically. Some nodded respectfully. Others avoided eye contact entirely. Fear and respect looked remarkably similar from the outside. "Kong Min-Jae," a voice called out. "About time you showed up?" An older man approached. White hair perfectly styled, expensive suit that screamed old money. His smile was warm, but his eyes were calculating. "Senator Morrison," Min-Jae said smoothly. "Good to see you." "And who's this lovely creature?" The senator's gaze slid to Celina. "Celina Arden," Min-Jae said, before Celina could introduce herself. "Richard Arden's daughter." Recognition flashed across the senator's face. "Ah, the merger we've all been hearing about. Quite a power move, combining the Arden and Kang families." "We're still in negotiations," Celina said carefully. The senator laughed. "Everything's a negotiation, dear. That's how the real world works." He turned back to Min-Jae. "We should talk later about that development project in Queens." "My office will call yours," Min-Jae said. The senator walked away, already pulling out his phone. "What development project?" Celina asked quietly. "Money laundering," Min-Jae said without missing a beat. "The senator sponsors the zoning changes. We build luxury condos. Cash gets cleaned through property sales. Everyone profits." Celina's stomach turned. "That's illegal." "So is half the business conducted in this room." Min-Jae guided her toward the bar. "Welcome to the world you were born into, Miss Arden. Your father's been playing this game for decades. He's just better at pretending he isn't." A bartender appeared immediately. Min-Jae ordered whiskey. Celina asked for wine she wouldn't drink. As they stood there, Celina watched the crowd with new eyes. Every smile hid calculation. Every handshake sealed deals that would never appear in contracts. Every laugh was performance. And in the center of it all stood Kong Min-Jae, conducting an orchestra of corruption with nothing more than his presence. "Do you ever get tired?" Celina asked suddenly. Min-Jae glanced at her. "Of what?" "This. The constant performance. Never being able to trust anyone." He was quiet for a moment, studying his whiskey like it might hold answers. "Every day," he said finally. "But tired doesn't matter. Survival matters. And in this world, the moment you stop performing is the moment someone decides you're weak enough to destroy." His phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned, then excused himself. "I need to handle something. Stay here. Don't wander." He disappeared into the crowd, his security trailing behind. Celina stood alone at the bar, drowning in silk and lies. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. Elias. "Babe, where are you? Need to talk. Important." Celina closed her eyes. Even here, surrounded by criminals and politicians, Elias's needs found her. She was about to reply when a woman's voice cut through her thoughts. "You must be Celina." Celina turned. The woman was Korean, maybe late 20s, dressed in a red gown that probably cost more than Celina's car. Beautiful in a sharp, dangerous way. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Ji-yoon," the woman said. "Min-Jae's sister." Celina's pulse quickened. He didn't mention he had a sister. "He doesn't mention a lot of things." Ji-yoon's smile sharpened. "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. They moved through the crowd toward the gardens, rain still falling beyond the glass doors. Ji-yoon walked like she owned the estate, and maybe she did. Once they were outside, standing beneath the cover of an ornate pergola while rain drummed around them, Ji-yoon turned to face Celina directly. "I'm going to be honest with you," Ji-yoon said, "because my brother seems to think you deserve honesty, and I trust his judgment even when I don't understand it." "Okay," Celina said carefully. "Everything," Ji-yoon said flatly. "If Min-Jae marries into the Arden family, it signals that he's serious about going legitimate. That makes him a target. And if you're standing beside him when someone decides to make a move, you become collateral damage." Celina's mouth went dry. "Is that a threat?" "It's a warning." Ji-yoon stepped closer. "You seem like a smart woman. Too smart to have walked into this arrangement blind. So here's what I need to know. Are you prepared to die for my brother? Because that's what this marriage might cost. The question hung in the rain-soaked air. Celina's heart hammered. I barely know him. Exactly, Ji-yoon's eyes glinted. So why are you really here? What are you getting out of this arrangement? My family's survival. At the cost of your own? Celina didn't have an answer. Ji-yoon studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Min-Jae sees something in you. I don't know what, but I hope for both your sakes that he's right. She turned to walk back inside, then paused. One more thing. The boyfriend you keep texting? Cut him loose. He's a liability you can't afford anymore. She disappeared into the gala, leaving Celina standing alone in the rain. When Min-Jae found her 20 minutes later, Celina was still standing in the same spot, rain soaking through her dress, phone clutched in her shaking hand. What happened? Min-Jae asked, his voice sharp with concern. Your sister, Celina said numbly. She warned me. Ji-yoon talks too much. Is she right? Celina looked at him directly. Am I going to die if I stay in this arrangement? Min-Jae's expression went cold and dangerous. Not if I can help it. That's not a no. No, Min-Jae agreed. It's not. They stood there in the rain while the gala continued inside, oblivious to the conversation happening in the shadows. I should walk away, Celina whispered. Yes, Min-Jae said. You probably should. But you're not letting me, are you? I gave you a choice. 1 month. If you want to leave after tonight, I'll honor that agreement. He stepped closer, rain streaming down his face. But I think you're tired of being protected from the truth. I think you're tired of living a life that looks perfect on the outside while everything rots underneath. And I think that terrifies you more than anything I could do. He was right. Celina hated that he was right. Come inside, Min-Jae said quietly. Dry off. We'll leave soon. But as they walked back toward the gala, Celina's phone buzzed one more time. Elias. Called your office. They said you took time off. What's going on? Are you with someone else? Celina stared at the message. Then she looked at Kang Min-Jae, the most feared Korean mafia boss in New York, who somehow saw her more clearly than the boyfriend she'd spent 3 years trying to save. And she made a decision she couldn't take back. She turned off her phone. The ride back to Manhattan felt longer than it should have. Rain hammered the SUV's roof while silence pressed against Celina's chest like a physical weight. Her phone sat dark in her lap, turned off. The first time in 3 years she deliberately made herself unreachable to Elias. Min-Jae sat beside her, scrolling through messages on his own phone with mechanical efficiency. His jaw was tight. Whatever he'd handled during the gala had left residue. Tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers moved slightly too fast across the screen. What happened back there? Celina asked quietly. When you disappeared. Business. What kind of business? Min-Jae's eyes flicked toward her, then back to his phone. The kind you don't need to know about yet. We agreed on honesty. We agreed you wouldn't lie to me. I never promised to tell you everything. He pocketed his phone. There are things in my world that will get you killed just for knowing about them. Information is leverage. Leverage is a target painted on your back. So you're protecting me by keeping me ignorant? Yes. The answer was so blunt it almost made Celina laugh. Almost. They crossed back into Manhattan around midnight. The city glittered beyond the tinted windows, oblivious to the conversation happening inside the armored vehicle. Min-Jae's driver navigated through rain-slicked streets, while the 2 security SUVs maintained formation behind them. Where are we going? Celina asked when she realized they weren't heading toward her apartment. My place, Min-Jae said. We need to talk, and your apartment isn't secure. Secure from what? From people who are very interested in what the Arden family is doing with the Kang organization. Min-Jae's expression remained neutral. You turned off your phone. That's going to create questions. Your boyfriend will panic, your parents will call, and when people panic, they make mistakes that get noticed by the wrong eyes. Celina's stomach twisted. So I'm just supposed to disappear? For tonight, yes. Min-Jae glanced at her. Unless you want to turn your phone back on and explain to everyone why you spent the evening at a gala filled with criminals and corrupt politicians. She didn't. Min-Jae's building was in Tribeca, all steel and glass and security that made Celina's expensive apartment complex look like a cheap motel. They rode the private elevator to the penthouse while armed guards nodded respectfully at Min-Jae and avoided looking at Celina entirely. The penthouse itself was starkly modern, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River. Minimal furniture. Everything precise and controlled, like Min-Jae had designed the space to reflect exactly nothing about who he actually was. "Drink?" Min-Jae asked, moving toward the bar. "Water." He poured her water and himself 3 fingers of whiskey. They stood on opposite sides of the living room while rain streaked the massive windows and the city pulsed beyond the glass. "Your sister said I'm a target," Celina said finally. "That marrying you makes me collateral damage." Min-Jae drank his whiskey in one smooth motion. "Ji-yoon worries too much." "Is she wrong?" "No." Min-Jae set down his glass. "She's not wrong, but she's also not seeing the full picture." "Then show me the full picture." Min-Jae studied her for a long moment. Rain drummed against the windows. Somewhere in the building, security cameras probably watched their every move. "My family has been transitioning our business model for the past 5 years," Min-Jae said finally. "Moving away from direct criminal activity toward legitimate enterprises. Casinos in Atlantic City, real estate in Manhattan, private security contracts with multinational corporations. It's slow, expensive, and it makes enemies on both sides." "Both sides?" "The criminal organizations who think we're betraying our roots, and the legitimate businesses who know exactly where our initial capital came from." Min-Jae's expression hardened. "Marrying into the Arden family gives us the legitimacy we need to complete the transition, but it also signals to our old allies that we're abandoning the game. And they don't like that. They hate it." Min-Jae moved toward the windows, his reflection ghosting across the glass. 3 of our subsidiary operations have been hit in the past 2 months. Shipments intercepted, bank accounts frozen, employees turning up dead in ways that send very specific messages. Celina's breath caught. "You're under attack." "We've been under attack for years. It's just getting worse." He turned to face her. "That's why this arrangement matters. The Arden Alliance stabilizes our position, makes us untouchable in ways that money alone can't accomplish. So I'm not just a wife. I'm a shield." "Yes." The honesty cut deeper than any lie could have. Celina set down her water glass before her shaking hands betrayed her completely. "What happens if I walk away? After the 30 days? The arrangement ends. Your family loses protection. My family loses legitimacy. And everyone who's been waiting for us to show weakness finally makes their move." "That's not an answer." "Yes, it is." Min-Jae's dark eyes held hers. "You want me to tell you that everything will be fine if you leave, that you can go back to your normal life with your struggling boyfriend and your corporate analyst job and pretend this month never happened. But that's not how this works. You're already part of the game now. The only question is whether you're playing to win or just hoping to survive." The words hit like fists. Celina wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the penthouse's perfect climate control. Through the windows, Manhattan glittered with oblivious light. Down there, people lived normal lives, worried about rent and relationships and careers that didn't involve mafia politics and murder. She used to be one of those people. "I should call Elias," Celina whispered. "Why?" "Because he's probably terrified. Because I owe him an explanation." "You don't owe him anything," Min-Jae said flatly. "That man has been draining you for 3 years while contributing nothing. He texts you 17 times in one day asking for money. Not once does he ask how you're doing. Not once does he notice you're drowning. You don't know him. I know men like him." Min-Jae's voice went cold. "Weak, self-absorbed, hiding behind creative ambitions while the women in their lives sacrifice everything to keep them afloat. Your boyfriend isn't an artist, Miss Arden. He's a parasite." Fury exploded in Celina's chest. "You have no right." "I have every right," Min-Jae interrupted. "You agreed to this trial period. That means I get to see you clearly, all of you, including the parts you're too afraid to look at yourself." He stepped closer. "You're in love with a fantasy, the version of Elias Reed that exists in your head, the talented musician on the verge of success who just needs one more break. But the real Elias? The one who never asks what you need? Who treats your wallet like an ATM? That man doesn't love you. He loves what you provide. Celina's vision blurred. Shut up! Make me. The challenge hung between them. For 3 seconds, Celina genuinely considered throwing her water glass at Min-Jae's perfect face. Her hands trembled with the urge, but something in his expression stopped her. He wasn't angry. He was testing her. This is what you do, isn't it? Celina said quietly. Push people until they break. See what they're really made of. Yes. Why? Because broken things are honest. Min-Jae's voice softened slightly. And I need to know if you're strong enough to stand beside me when everything falls apart. Because it will fall apart, Miss Arden. That's a guarantee. The only question is whether you'll still be standing when the dust settles. Celina met his dark eyes. Rain continued hammering the windows. Somewhere in her purse, her phone remained dark and silent, cutting her off from the life she'd known before tonight. I want to go home, she said finally. No, you don't. Stop telling me what I want. Then stop lying to both of us. Min-Jae moved past her toward the hallway. Guest room is second door on the left. Bathroom stocked with whatever you need. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, reality starts catching up. He disappeared down the hallway, leaving Celina alone in the massive living room with her reflection ghosting across the rain-streaked windows. She didn't move for a long time. Then slowly she pulled out her phone and turned it back on. 43 missed calls. 27 texts from Elias. 16 from her mother. 3 from her father. All of them demanding to know where she was. What she was doing. Why she wasn't answering. Celina scrolled through Elias's messages. They started worried, turned angry, then circled back to desperate. Every single one focused on him. His fear, his confusion, his need for answers. Not once did he ask if she was safe. Min-Jae's words echoed in her head. He loves what you provide. Celina turned off her phone again and went to find the guest room. Dang. Morning arrived with brutal clarity. Sunlight poured through the penthouse windows, transforming the space from moody and atmospheric to starkly exposed. Celina woke in the guest room wearing borrowed clothes, one of Min-Jae's shirts that hung to mid-thigh and boxer shorts she'd found folded in a drawer. Her dress from last night lay draped over a chair, still slightly damp from the rain. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. Celina found Min-Jae standing at the massive windows, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt rolled to the elbows. He was on the phone, speaking rapid Korean in a tone that suggested someone on the other end was about to have a very bad day. He glanced at Celina when she entered, but didn't pause his conversation. She poured herself coffee and waited. Finally, Min-Jae ended the call and pocketed his phone. Sleep well? No. Good. Comfort makes you weak. He gestured toward the dining table where breakfast had been laid out. Too much food for 2 people, which meant staff had been here while Celina slept. Eat. We have 3 meetings today. I didn't agree to meetings. You agreed to a trial period. Meetings are part of the trial. Min-Jae sat down, immediately checking his phone again. First meeting is with my family's financial advisors. Boring but necessary. Second meeting is with your father. He's been calling my office since 6 this morning, demanding to know why his daughter spent the night at my penthouse. Celina's stomach dropped. You told him I was here? I told him you were safe. That seemed to upset him more than if I'd said you were in danger. Min-Jae's mouth curved slightly. Your father doesn't care about your safety, Miss Arden. He cares about control, and right now he's realizing he's losing it. What's the third meeting? Min-Jae's expression went carefully neutral. Your boyfriend requested a conversation. I agreed to meet him at 4. Celina's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. Elias wants to meet you? He wants to threaten me, actually. Told my assistant he knows people, that I should be careful about messing with his girlfriend. Min-Jae's eyes glinted. It's going to be entertaining. You can't meet with him. Why not? Because you'll destroy him. Probably. Min-Jae leaned back in his chair. But he requested the meeting. I'm simply being accommodating. Rage and terror twisted together in Celina's chest. This isn't a game. Everything is a game, Min-Jae corrected. Your boyfriend just doesn't realize he's playing in a league that will eat him alive. He stood, abandoning his barely touched breakfast. Get dressed. We leave in 30 minutes. The first meeting was exactly as boring as Min-Jae promised. 3 hours in a conference room while financial advisors droned through investment portfolios and asset restructuring strategies. Celina understood maybe half of what was being discussed. But she noticed the way Min-Jae commanded the room without effort. Every decision flowed through him. Every advisor waited for his approval before moving forward. This was his empire, built on blood and strategy and an intelligence that most people underestimated until it was too late. The second meeting was worse. Richard Arden arrived at Min-Jae's office building, flanked by his own security and radiating controlled fury. Celina's father was 58, silver-haired, powerful in the way wealthy men always were, used to getting his way through money and influence and occasionally subtle threats. But in Min-Jae's office, none of that mattered. "Where was my daughter last night?" Richard demanded the moment they were alone. "With me," Min-Jae said calmly. "Doing what?" "That's between me and Celina." Richard's face reddened. "You don't get to keep secrets about my daughter. This arrangement exists because I allow it to exist. One phone call and what?" Min-Jae interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. "You'll destroy the alliance that's currently preventing federal investigators from tearing apart your offshore accounts? You'll lose the protection that's keeping your competitors from burying you?" He leaned forward slightly. "Make that phone call, Mr. Arden. I'd love to see what happens next." The room went silent. Celina watched her father's face cycle through shock, rage, and finally calculation. He was realizing what she'd already figured out. He needed Min-Jae more than Min-Jae needed him. "I want daily updates," Richard said finally. "No. She's my daughter." "She's a grown woman," Min-Jae corrected. "And you don't own her. You never did. You just convinced her you did." Richard turned toward Celina for the first time since entering the office. His eyes were cold. "Is this what you want? To throw away everything we've built for you?" "You didn't build anything for me," Celina said quietly. "You built it for yourself. I was just part of the plan." Something cracked in her father's expression. "Celina, I'll call Mom later," Celina interrupted. "Tell her I'm fine. That's all either of you needs to know." Richard Arden stared at his daughter like she'd become someone he didn't recognize. Maybe she had. He left without another word. After he was gone, Min-Jae poured himself a drink even though it wasn't even noon yet. "How do you feel?" "Like I just jumped off a cliff." "Good." Min-Jae raised his glass slightly. "Now you're starting to understand." The third meeting happened in a restaurant Min-Jae owned in Midtown. Private back room. No other customers. Just Celina, Min-Jae, two of his security personnel, and Elias Reed sitting across the table looking like he'd been awake for 3 days straight. Elias had always been handsome in a struggling artist way. Messy dark hair, perpetual stubble, vintage band tees, and ripped jeans that cost more than he'd ever admit. But next to Kang Min-Jae's controlled elegance, he looked juvenile, unfinished. "You must be Kang," Elias said, trying for confident and landing somewhere near hostile. "I am." Min-Jae gestured toward the chair across from him. "Sit." Elias sat. His eyes found Celina standing near the door. "Babe, what's going on? You disappeared. Wouldn't answer calls. Your mom said you're engaged to this guy? Is that true?" "It's complicated," Celina started. "It's simple," Min-Jae interrupted. "Celina and I are exploring an arrangement. During that time, she's unavailable to you." Elias's jaw tightened. "Unavailable? She's my girlfriend. We've been together 3 years. And in those 3 years, what have you contributed to her life besides financial burden?" The question landed like a slap. Elias's face flushed. "You don't know anything about us. I know you've borrowed $47,000 from her in the past 18 months. I know you've never paid back a single dollar. I know she works 60-hour weeks at a job she hates while you chase music career fantasies that will never materialize." Min-Jae's voice remained calm, but his eyes were merciless. "I know that 3 days ago, you asked her for $500 for studio time while she was preparing for an arranged marriage that terrified her. Not once did you ask how she was handling that terror." Elias looked at Celina. "You told him about the money?" "I didn't have to," Min-Jae said. "I employ people who tell me everything about everyone in my orbit. Your financial history, your string of failed business ventures, the other women you've been texting when Celina's at work." Celina's breath stopped. "What?" she whispered. Elias went pale. "It's not. I wasn't." 4 different women in the past 6 months, Min-Jae continued relentlessly. Nothing physical, probably. Just enough emotional connection to keep your options open in case Celina's bank account finally ran dry. The room spun. Celina grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. Elias? He's lying, Elias said desperately. Babe, I would never... Show her, Min-Jae said quietly. One of the security personnel stepped forward and handed Celina a tablet. Screenshots filled the screen. Text conversations between Elias and women whose names Celina didn't recognize. Flirtatious messages, late-night calls. Plans to meet up that maybe happened or maybe didn't, but the intention was clear. Elias had been building escape routes, just in case. You bastard, Celina whispered. It didn't mean anything, Elias said, standing up. They were just... I was lonely, okay? You were always working, always exhausted. I needed someone to talk to. You needed someone to you, Min-Jae corrected. Just like you've been using Celina. The only difference is she had resources worth draining. Elias turned on Min-Jae. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm the man who sees your girlfriend clearly enough to know she deserves better than a parasite pretending to be an artist. Min-Jae stood slowly, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. You came here to threaten me, to warn me away from Celina because you were afraid of losing your ATM. But here's what's actually going to happen. He moved around the table with predatory grace. You're going to leave this restaurant, you're going to delete Celina's number from your phone, and you're going to forget she exists. Because if I ever hear you've contacted her again, for money, for closure, for any reason at all, I will personally ensure that every music venue, every studio, every producer in this city knows exactly what kind of man you are. Elias tried to hold his ground. You can't do that. I own half the entertainment industry in Manhattan. I absolutely can do that. Min-Jae stepped closer. And if threats don't work, I have other methods. Methods that involve you waking up in places you didn't know existed. Do we understand each other? For 5 seconds, Elias looked like he might actually try to fight. Then reality caught up with him. He was standing in front of a Korean mafia boss who could destroy his life with a phone call. Fine, Elias spat. He looked at Celina one last time. I hope he's worth it. I hope you're happy with your monster. He walked out. The door closed behind him. Celina stood frozen, the tablet still clutched in her shaking hands. Screenshots of betrayal stared back at her. Evidence of 3 years wasted on someone who'd never actually seen her as anything more than a resource to exploit. Why? She whispered. Min-Jae took the tablet from her trembling grip. Why did I show you? Why did you investigate him? Why go through all that trouble? Because I needed you to see the truth. Min-Jae's expression softened slightly. You were never going to leave him on your own. You'd have spent another 5 years trying to fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. So I gave you the evidence you needed to finally let go. Tears burned Celina's eyes. She refused to let them fall. I hate you, she said. I know. You had no right. I had every right, Min-Jae interrupted gently. You're mine for the next 3 weeks. That means I protect my investment, even from yourself. The words should have made her angrier. Instead, they broke something loose in her chest. Celina sank into the chair Elias had abandoned. Her hands covered her face. 3 years. $47,000. Hundreds of hours spent worrying about his dreams while her own withered from neglect. And the entire time, he'd been building exits. Min-Jae's hand settled on her shoulder. Warm, steady. The first genuine comfort she'd felt in months. He wasn't worth you, Min-Jae said quietly. He never was. Celina looked up at him. And you think you are? No. Min-Jae's smile was small and sad. But at least I'm honest about being a monster. Mset. The next 2 weeks blurred together in a chaos of events, meetings, and psychological warfare. Min-Jae threw Celina into his world without hesitation. She attended meetings with crime bosses who smiled while discussing murder. She sat through dinners with politicians who traded legislation like baseball cards. She watched Min-Jae orchestrate an empire with nothing more than carefully chosen words and occasional demonstrations of violence that left no evidence. And slowly, something inside her started to crack. Not breaking, transforming. She stopped thinking about Elias. Stopped checking her phone for messages that would never come. Stop pretending she was the same person who'd walked into the Pierre Hotel 3 weeks ago wearing neon cargo pants as armor. That version of Celina had been scared. This version was angry, and anger, Celina was discovering, could be weaponized. "You're learning," Min-Jae said one night as they left another gala where senators and criminals drank together like old friends. "Learning what?" Celina asked. "How to survive." They were standing on the steps outside the venue, waiting for Min-Jae's SUV to navigate through traffic. Rain misted the air. Security personnel maintained perimeter watch. Behind them, the glittering party continued, oblivious. "I saw you talking to Councilman Reeves," Min-Jae continued. "You got him to commit to the zoning variance without him realizing what he'd agreed to. He was drunk and arrogant. Easy target. Most people would have pushed too hard. You knew exactly when to stop." Min-Jae's dark eyes held hers. "You're good at this. At manipulating people? At playing the game." The words should have felt like an insult. Instead, they felt like recognition. The SUV pulled up. They climbed inside. Rain picked up intensity, drumming against the roof as they merged into Manhattan traffic. "Tomorrow is day 30, Min-Jae said quietly. Celina had been counting. Of course she'd been counting. Tomorrow marked the end of their trial period, the day they both decided if this arrangement continued or if they walked away clean. "Have you made your decision?" Celina asked. "Have you?" "I asked first." Min-Jae studied her in the dim light of the moving vehicle. Rain streaked the windows. The city pulsed beyond the glass. "Yes," he said finally. "I've decided. And? I'll tell you tomorrow, when you tell me yours." They rode the rest of the way in silence. When they reached Min-Jae's building, he walked Celina to the guest room she'd been staying in for the past 2 weeks. Her apartment had started feeling dangerous, too exposed, too vulnerable to the people watching the Arden-Kang alliance with hungry eyes. "Get some rest," Min-Jae said at the door. "Tomorrow changes everything." "It already has," Celina replied. Min-Jae's expression shifted slightly. Something that might have been regret flickered across his face. "I'm sorry about Elias, about showing you that evidence the way I did." "No, you're not." "You're right, I'm not." He stepped closer. "But I'm sorry that the truth hurt you. You didn't deserve that pain." "I deserve the truth." "Those aren't always the same thing." They stood in the doorway, close enough that Celina could smell his cologne mixed with the rain still clinging to his jacket. Close enough to notice the way his jaw tightened when he was restraining himself. "What are you thinking?" Celina asked softly. "That you're the most dangerous person I've ever met." "I'm not dangerous." "You are," Min-Jae corrected, "because you make me want things I can't afford to want. And want is weakness. Weakness gets people killed." Before Celina could respond, Min-Jae stepped back. "Tomorrow," he said. "We'll talk tomorrow." He disappeared down the hallway, leaving Celina alone with questions that felt like landmines. She went into the guest room and closed the door. Her phone sat on the nightstand, turned on now, messages from her mother piling up like accusations. Celina ignored them. Instead, she opened her banking app and stared at the numbers on the screen. $47,000. That's what Elias had cost her. But staring at the account now, Celina realized she wasn't mourning the money. She was mourning the version of herself who'd been so desperate to be needed that she'd mistaken dependency for love. Min-Jae had stripped that illusion away. Brutally, efficiently, without apology. And Celina hated that she was grateful for it. She turned off the light and lay in the darkness listening to rain hammer the windows. Tomorrow, she had to decide. Walk away and return to the life she'd known before. Safety, predictability, boredom disguised as stability. Or stay beside the monster who saw her more clearly than anyone ever had. The next morning arrived too fast. Celina woke to sunlight streaming through the guest room windows and the smell of fresh coffee drifting through the penthouse. She got dressed slowly, each movement deliberate, like she was preparing for battle. Black pants, white blouse, hair pulled back in a severe bun. Armor. Min-Jae was already in the living room when she emerged, standing at the massive windows overlooking the Hudson River. He wore a dark suit, perfect as always, phone in hand but not looking at it. "Coffee's ready," he said without turning around. Celina poured herself a cup and joined him at the windows. Manhattan sprawled below them, oblivious and glittering. Day 30, Min-Jae said quietly. Day 30, Celina confirmed. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Min-Jae's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned, then answered. What? His voice went sharp immediately. When? Whatever was happening on the other end made his entire body go rigid. Celina watched his expression shift from controlled calm to something darker, fury mixed with cold calculation. Keep them contained, Min-Jae said into the phone. I'm on my way. He ended the call. What's wrong? Celina asked. We have a problem. Min-Jae was already moving toward the elevator, grabbing his jacket. Someone hit one of our warehouses in Queens. 3 of my people are dead. The shipment's gone. Celina's blood went cold. Who? I don't know yet, but whoever they are, they just declared war. He stopped at the elevator, his hand on the button. For the first time since she'd met him, Min-Jae looked uncertain. I need to handle this. It's going to get ugly. I'm coming with you. No, you don't get to protect me from reality, Celina said firmly. Not anymore. You threw me into your world. You made me part of this. So I'm coming with you. Min-Jae stared at her. Rain started falling again outside the windows, turning the morning gray. This isn't a game anymore, he said quietly. People are dead. More people are going to die. If you come with me, you cross a line you can't uncross. I crossed that line the moment I got in your car 3 weeks ago. Something shifted in Min-Jae's expression. Respect, maybe, or resignation. Fine, he said, but stay close. Do exactly what I tell you, and if things go bad— They won't, Celina interrupted. Min-Jae's smile was grim. They already have. The elevator doors opened, and together they descended into the kind of violence that Celina had only ever seen in movies. The warehouse in Queens was still smoking when they arrived. Fire trucks blocked half the street. Police cruisers lined the perimeter, but Min-Jae's SUV drove past all of them, heading to a back entrance that wasn't visible from the street. How are we getting past the police? Celina asked. Half of them are on my payroll, Min-Jae said flatly. The other half know better than to look too closely. They exited the vehicle into controlled chaos. Min-Jae's security personnel had established a perimeter inside the warehouse, keeping police at bay while they cleaned up whatever had happened here. Blood stained the concrete floor. Bullet holes pocked the metal walls. 3 bodies lay covered in tarps near the loading dock. Celina's stomach turned. Stay here, Min-Jae ordered, then disappeared into a cluster of his men. Celina watched him move through the aftermath with cold efficiency. He crouched beside the covered bodies, spoke quietly with his security personnel, made phone calls that probably orchestrated cover stories and evidence disposal. This was who he really was, not the elegant man in expensive suits who attended galas and smiled at politicians. This, a crime boss cleaning up murder. After 20 minutes, Min-Jae returned. His expression was granite. It was the Volkov organization, he said. Russian syndicate. They've been circling our territory for months. This was them testing our defenses. What are you going to do? I'm going to respond. Min-Jae's jaw tightened. But first, I need to make sure you're safe. This just became exponentially more dangerous. I'm not leaving. Celina, I'm not leaving, she repeated firmly. You wanted to know if I was strong enough to stand beside you. This is your answer. Min-Jae stared at her. Behind him, his men continued working, erasing evidence, coordinating stories, preparing for whatever came next. If you stay, Min-Jae said quietly, people will use you to hurt me. They'll see you as leverage, a weakness. Then teach me not to be weak. The words hung between them. For a long moment, Min-Jae didn't respond. Then slowly, something changed in his expression. The cold mask cracked slightly, revealing the man underneath. Exhausted, lethal, alone. Okay, he said finally, but you follow my rules. No arguments, no hesitation. If I tell you to run, you run. If I tell you to hide, you hide. Your safety is non-negotiable. Agreed. Min-Jae's phone buzzed again. He checked it, then looked back at Celina with an expression she couldn't read. What? She asked. Your father just called a board meeting, emergency session. He's moving to dissolve the Arden-Kang alliance. Celina's breath stopped. He can't do that. He can if he convinces the board that I'm a liability, that this attack proves the Kang family is too dangerous to associate with. Min-Jae's eyes darkened. Your father's been waiting for an excuse to back out. The warehouse hit gave him one. So we stop him. How? Celina's mind raced. She'd sat through hundreds of her father's board meetings, watched him manipulate votes through favors and fear, and carefully constructed alliances. She knew how he operated. The board answers to money, Celina said slowly. If we can show them that staying with the Kang family is more profitable than leaving, they won't care about profit if they're dead, Min-Jae interrupted. The warehouse attack scared them. Fear beats profit every time. Then we give them something more powerful than fear. What? Celina met his eyes. Certainty. We get married, today, right now. Make the alliance permanent before your father can dissolve it. If I'm your wife, the board can't vote to end the arrangement without destroying the Arden family's reputation in the process. Min-Jae went very still. You're suggesting we actually go through with this. I'm suggesting we take control of the narrative before someone else does. Rain hammered the warehouse roof. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Behind them, Min-Jae's men continued working through the aftermath of violence. And in the center of it all, Kang Min-Jae and Celina Arden stood facing each other with a decision that would reshape both their lives. If we do this, Min-Jae said quietly, there's no going back, no trial period, no walking away clean. You become part of my world permanently. I know. Your father will never forgive you. I know. You'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering who's planning the next attack, who sees you as leverage, who wants to use you to hurt me. I know, Celina repeated, but at least I'll be making my own choices instead of living inside someone else's plan. Min-Jae studied her face like he was searching for cracks, for hesitation, for any sign that she didn't understand what she was agreeing to. He found none. Okay, he said finally. Let's get married. He pulled out his phone and made a call. And standing in a blood-stained warehouse while sirens wailed and rain pounded the roof, Celina Arden made the most reckless decision of her life. She chose the monster, because he was the only person who'd ever let her choose at all. The courthouse in Lower Manhattan smelled like old paper and institutional bleach. Min-Jae had called in favors to secure a judge willing to perform a marriage ceremony on 30 minutes' notice with no questions asked. Money changed hands, documents were expedited. Security personnel lined the hallways while confused court staff pretended not to notice the Korean mafia boss commandeering their building. Celina stood in a bathroom staring at her reflection while reality crashed down around her. She was about to marry a man she'd known for 30 days. A man whose world included murder and corruption and violence that left bloodstains on warehouse floors. A man who'd destroyed her previous relationship with calculated precision just to prove she deserved better. Her hands shook as she tried to fix her hair. The bathroom door opened. Min-Jae's sister Ji-yoon walked in, carrying a small bouquet of white roses that looked absurdly delicate given the circumstances. He sent me to check on you, Ji-yoon said, her expression unreadable. Make sure you weren't climbing out a window. I don't run, Celina said. Everyone runs eventually. Ji-yoon set the bouquet on the counter. The question is whether they run towards something or away from it. Celina met her eyes in the mirror. You think I'm making a mistake. I think you're making a choice. Whether it's a mistake depends on who you become after today. Ji-yoon leaned against the tiled wall. My brother is dangerous. You know that. But what you might not realize is that he's also alone, surrounded by people but fundamentally isolated. He doesn't trust easily. He doesn't love easily. And when he does either of those things, he commits completely. Are you warning me or giving me advice? Both. Ji-yoon's expression softened slightly. Min-Jae sees something in you. I still don't know what. But if you're going through with this marriage, you need to understand that you're not just marrying a man. You're marrying an empire. And empires eat people alive. I can handle it. Can you? Ji-yoon pushed off the wall. Because in about 10 minutes, you're going to become the most valuable target in New York. Everyone who wants to hurt my brother will see you as the easiest way to do it. And some of those people are very creative about causing pain. Celina's stomach twisted, but she kept her voice steady. Then I'll learn to be creative about preventing it. Ji-yoon studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. Maybe Min-Jae's right about you after all. She picked up the bouquet and handed it to Celina. Let's go. The judge is waiting. The ceremony took 7 minutes. Celina stood beside Kang Min-Jae in a courthouse chamber that had probably witnessed thousands of marriages between people who actually loved each other. The judge read from a script he'd clearly memorized decades ago, his voice flat with bureaucratic efficiency. Min-Jae's security personnel served as witnesses, their faces professionally blank as they watched their boss enter into a strategic alliance disguised as matrimony. Do you, Kang Min-Jae, take Celina Arden to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Celina Arden, take Kang Min-Jae to be your lawfully wedded husband? Celina's mouth went dry. This was it. The moment everything became real and permanent, no more trial period, no more escape routes. She looked at Min-Jae. His dark eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. He wasn't smiling, wasn't pretending this was anything other than what it was, a calculated move in a game where losing meant death. But beneath the calculation, Celina saw something else. Fear. He was afraid she'd say no. I do, Celina said. Relief flickered across Min-Jae's face so quickly she almost missed it. The judge pronounced them married. No one clapped. No one cheered. Min-Jae's security personnel simply nodded and began coordinating next steps while the judge collected his payment and disappeared back into the courthouse machinery. Min-Jae turned to Celina. We need to move fast. The board meeting starts in 2 hours. By then, every news outlet in the city needs to know about this marriage. Make it impossible for your father to dissolve the alliance without looking like he's betraying his own daughter. How do we do that? Min-Jae pulled out his phone. I know people. Within 30 minutes, the news exploded across Manhattan. Social media, news websites, gossip columns. Everyone who mattered in New York's elite circles suddenly knew that Celina Arden had married Kang Min-Jae in a private courthouse ceremony. Photos appeared, carefully staged shots of them leaving the courthouse together. Min-Jae's hand protectively on Celina's back, both of them looking like a power couple stepping into their empire. Celina's phone started vibrating immediately. Calls from her mother, her father, friends she hadn't spoken to in months, suddenly desperate for details. She ignored all of them. Your father just postponed the board meeting, Min-Jae said, reading something on his phone. He knows he can't move against me now without destroying the family reputation. We bought ourselves time. How much time? Depends on how fast he figures out his next move. Min-Jae pocketed his phone. But for now, we control the narrative. That's a win. They were standing on the courthouse steps while rain misted the air and security personnel maintained perimeter watch. Manhattan rushed past them, oblivious to the fact that 2 people had just rearranged the city's power structure with nothing more than a legal document and some strategic publicity. Celina stared at the ring on her finger. Simple platinum band that Min-Jae had produced from somewhere, probably kept on hand for exactly this kind of emergency. It felt foreign, heavy, like wearing someone else's life. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now we go to war, Min-Jae said. The Volkov organization hit us. We hit them back. Hard enough that everyone else thinking about testing us decides it's not worth the risk. And me, you stay close, learn fast, and try not to get killed. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't reassuring, but it was honest. And somehow, that made it easier to breathe. They returned to Min-Jae's penthouse to regroup and plan their response. The living room had transformed into a war room, laptops open on every surface. Min-Jae's key personnel gathered around discussing retaliation strategies, while maps of Queens and Brooklyn covered the dining table. Celina stood near those windows watching the organized chaos, while trying to process the fact that she was now married to the man orchestrating all of it. Mrs. Kang, someone said behind her. Celina turned. One of Min-Jae's senior advisors, a man named Chen, who she'd met briefly at various events, stood holding a tablet. His expression was carefully neutral. I need you to sign these documents, Chen said. Standard legal protections, powers of attorney, access authorizations. In case something happens to Min-Jae, you'll need authority to act on behalf of the family. Celina took the tablet. The documents were dense with legal language she only half understood, but the implications were clear. She was being woven into the infrastructure of the Kang Empire, made official, given power she hadn't asked for and wasn't sure she wanted. "Does Min-Jae know you're having me sign these?" Celina asked. It was his idea. Chen's expression didn't change. "He's making you legitimate. That protects both of you." Celina signed the documents without reading them completely. What was the point? She'd already committed to this path. Reading the fine print wouldn't change anything. Chen took back the tablet and disappeared into the crowd of personnel coordinating the response to the warehouse attack. Across the room, Min-Jae was on the phone speaking rapid Korean. His posture was rigid. Whatever he was hearing, it wasn't good. When he finally ended the call, his expression was murderous. "What?" Celina asked, moving toward him. "The Volkov hit wasn't random," Min-Jae said quietly. "They knew exactly when our shipment would arrive. Knew which warehouse, knew how many security personnel we'd have on site." His jaw tightened. "Someone inside my organization gave them that information." The room went silent. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned toward Min-Jae. "We have a traitor," Min-Jae continued, his voice dangerously calm. "Someone close enough to access operational details. Someone who's been feeding intelligence to the Russians for weeks, maybe months." Celina's blood went cold. "How do you know?" "Because the timing was too perfect. The Volkovs hit us hours after our marriage became public. That's not coincidence. Someone's trying to destabilize us during a vulnerable transition." "Who?" Ji-yoon asked from across the room. "I don't know yet." Min-Jae's eyes scanned his gathered personnel like he was calculating which of them might be capable of betrayal. "But we're going to find out." The next 3 days were brutal. Min-Jae launched a counterattack against the Volkov organization that was surgical and merciless. 2 of their warehouses burned. 3 of their key operatives disappeared. Money vanished from their accounts in ways that couldn't be traced. The Russians responded with their own attacks, escalating the conflict into a full-scale war that played out in shadows across the city. And through it all, Min-Jae hunted for the traitor. He interrogated his own people, reviewed communications, tracked movements and money flows. Celina watched him transform into something colder than she'd seen before, a man willing to tear apart his own organization to find the infection spreading through it. She stayed close, learning the machinery of his empire, the names, the hierarchies, the debts and alliances that held everything together. Ji-yoon became an unexpected ally, teaching Celina how to read the subtle power dynamics that governed Min-Jae's world. "Never show fear," Ji-yoon said during one of their conversations. "The moment they smell weakness, they'll test you, and tests in our world are usually fatal." Celina absorbed everything, adapted, hardened, and slowly she stopped recognizing herself in mirrors. On the 4th day, Min-Jae called an emergency meeting. Everyone gathered in the penthouse living room, senior advisors, security chiefs, financial managers, all the key personnel who kept the Kang Empire running. Celina stood beside Min-Jae as he addressed the room, her presence a silent statement that she was no longer just his wife, but part of the command structure. "We found the traitor," Min-Jae said without preamble. Tension exploded through the room. "His name is David Park. He's been working in our financial division for 3 years. The Volkovs recruited him 8 months ago. He's been feeding them operational intelligence in exchange for money and protection." Min-Jae's voice remained eerily calm. "He's also been skimming from our accounts. Small amounts. Careful. But over time, he's stolen close to $2 million. Murmurs rippled through the gathered personnel. "Where is he now?" Chen asked. "In the basement," Min-Jae said flatly, "waiting for me to decide what happens next." The room went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Min-Jae turned to Celina. "Come with me." Celina's stomach dropped. "Where?" "To see David Park. You need to understand what betrayal costs." Every instinct screamed at Celina to refuse, to draw a line between the violence she could stomach and the violence she couldn't. But she'd committed to this world, promised not to flinch when things got ugly. So she followed Min-Jae toward the elevator. They descended to the basement parking garage, where Min-Jae's security maintained a private area cordoned off from public access. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The smell of oil and concrete filled the air. In the corner, tied to a chair, sat David Park. He was maybe 30 years old, Korean-American, dressed in business casual that was now torn and blood-stained. His face was swollen from whatever interrogation had already happened. When he saw Min-Jae, genuine terror flooded his expression. "Please," David gasped. "I'll give it back. All of it. I'll tell you everything the Volkovs wanted. Just please." "You killed 3 of my people," Min-Jae said quietly. "The warehouse attack you enabled murdered men who trusted me to protect them. Men who had families." "I didn't know they were going to kill anyone," David said desperately. "I thought it was just about the shipment." "You thought wrong." Min-Jae circled the chair slowly. "You betrayed your family, sold out people who treated you like a brother. For money. For safety you were never going to actually have." David's eyes found Celina. "Mrs. Kang, please, talk to him. I made a mistake. I was desperate. I can fix this." "You can't," Celina said quietly. "You already killed the people you betrayed. There's no fixing that." The words came out colder than she expected, harsher, like someone else was speaking through her mouth. Min-Jae glanced at her, something unreadable in his expression. "You have a choice," Min-Jae said to David. "You can tell me everything the Volkovs wanted, every piece of information you gave them, every contact, every plan, and I'll make your death quick." David started crying. Or I let my men be creative, and you spend the next 3 days wishing I'd chosen mercy." Celina's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to look away, wanted to leave. But Min-Jae had brought her here for a reason. To see this. To understand that the empire she'd married into was built on violence that didn't apologize for itself. David talked for 20 minutes. Spilled everything. The Volkovs wanted to know about Min-Jae's transition to legitimate business. Which operations were most vulnerable? Which politicians were actually loyal versus which ones could be bought? David had given them everything they needed to tear the Kang family apart. When he finished, Min-Jae nodded to his security chief. "Make it quick," Min-Jae said. Then he took Celina's arm and guided her toward the elevator. Behind them, David started screaming. The elevator doors closed, cutting off the sound. Celina's legs nearly gave out. Min-Jae's hand on her arm was the only thing keeping her upright as they rose back toward the penthouse. "That's what this world costs," Min-Jae said quietly. "That's what you married into. If you can't handle it, tell me now. I'll protect you, set you up somewhere safe. But I need to know if you're strong enough to stand beside me when things get worse." "Worse than execution in a parking garage?" "Much worse." The elevator stopped. The doors opened. Celina stepped out into the penthouse, her mind reeling. She could still hear David's screams echoing in her head, could still see the terror in his eyes, could still feel the coldness in her own voice when she told him there was no fixing his betrayal. Who was she becoming? She walked to the windows overlooking the Hudson River. Manhattan glittered beyond the glass, beautiful and indifferent. Somewhere down there, people were living normal lives, going to work, worrying about bills and relationships and problems that didn't involve organized crime. Celina used to be one of those people. Now she was married to a man who ordered executions like other people ordered coffee. Min-Jae appeared beside her, 2 glasses of whiskey in his hands. He offered her one. "I shouldn't have brought you down there," he said quietly. "Yes, you should have." Celina took the glass. "You needed me to see the truth, that there's no playing at this, no pretending the violence happened somewhere else." "Do you regret marrying me?" Celina met his eyes. "Ask me tomorrow." They stood in silence, drinking whiskey while the city pulsed beyond the windows, and somewhere below them, David Park stopped screaming. The next morning, Celina woke alone in Min-Jae's bed. They'd been sharing the master bedroom since the marriage, though nothing physical had happened between them. They slept on opposite sides of the mattress like strangers occupying the same war zone. She found Min-Jae in his office, staring at his laptop with an expression that made her stomach drop. "What's wrong?" Celina asked. Min-Jae turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was a news article. The headline read, "Arden Financial Empire under federal investigation, allegations of money laundering and offshore tax evasion." Celina's blood went cold. "When did this?" "An hour ago. Someone leaked documents to federal investigators. Your father's offshore accounts, shell companies, transactions that trace directly back to illegal activity." Min-Jae's expression was grim. "This is catastrophic. If the investigation moves forward, the entire Arden empire collapses. Who leaked it? I don't know. But the timing isn't coincidence. Min-Jae closed the laptop. Someone wants your father destroyed, and they're using the chaos of our marriage as cover to make their move. Celina sank into a chair. Her mind raced. Her father's business had always existed in legal gray areas, but she'd never realized how deep the corruption ran, and now it was all being exposed in ways that would probably end with prison sentences. Can you help him? Celina asked. Why would I? The question was brutal in its honesty. Celina looked up at Min-Jae. Because he's my father. He's also the man who tried to dissolve our alliance the moment it became inconvenient, who treated you like property to be sold to the highest bidder, who spent your entire life making you feel like your worth was measured in how useful you were to his empire. Min-Jae's voice was flat. Give me one good reason why I should save him. Celina didn't have one, and that realization was almost as devastating as the news itself. Her phone rang. Her mother's face filled the screen. Celina answered. Mom, did you see the news? Her mother's voice was shaking. Celina, this is a disaster. Your father is talking to lawyers, but if these allegations stick, we're ruined. Everything you built on illegal activity, Celina interrupted. Silence on the other end. How dare you? Her mother said finally, voice going ice cold. After everything we've given you, after we arranged a marriage that elevated you into one of the most powerful families in New York. And this is how you repay us? By abandoning us when we need you most? You didn't arrange a marriage for me, Celina said quietly. You arranged it for yourselves, to protect your empire, your reputation, your money. I was just the piece you traded to make it happen. Celina, I have to go, Mom. She ended the call. Her hands were shaking. Min-Jae watched her from across the office, his expression unreadable. I meant what I said, Min-Jae told her. I won't save your father unless you ask me to. This is your choice. Celina thought about her father, the man who'd raised her to be perfect, who'd taught her that emotions were weaknesses and strategy was everything, who'd never once asked what she wanted from her own life, the man who was now drowning in consequences of his own corruption. Let him drown, Celina said. Min-Jae's eyebrows rose slightly. You're sure? I'm sure. Celina stood, her legs steadier than they should be. He made his choices. He can live with the results, just like I'm living with mine. Something shifted in Min-Jae's expression. Respect, maybe. A recognition that she'd finally stopped clinging to the life she'd lost and committed fully to the one she'd chosen. Okay, Min-Jae said simply. Then we move forward without him. But moving forward proved more complicated than either of them anticipated. Over the next week, the federal investigation into Richard Arden accelerated. Assets were frozen. Business partners distanced themselves. The Arden family's social standing collapsed overnight, as everyone who'd once courted their favor suddenly pretended not to know them. And through it all, Min-Jae's own war with the Volkov organization escalated. 3 more of his operations were hit. 2 more of his people died. The Russians were pressing harder, testing every weakness, probing for the crack that would let them shatter the Kang Empire completely. Then, on the 8th day after the marriage, Ji-yoon appeared at the penthouse looking like she'd been awake for 72 hours straight. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Another one? Min-Jae asked tiredly. Worse. Ji-yoon pulled out her phone and showed them a photograph. This was delivered to our Seoul office this morning. The photograph showed Celina leaving a coffee shop near Min-Jae's building. The angle suggested it had been taken from across the street with a telephoto lens. And written across the bottom in red marker were 4 words. We know where she is. Celina's stomach dropped. The Volkovs, Min-Jae said flatly. Yes. Ji-yoon's expression was grim. They're making their move. They know they can't hurt you directly, so they're going after your wife instead. Min-Jae's face went utterly blank, the kind of blank that preceded extreme violence. Double security, he said quietly. Celina doesn't go anywhere without a full detail. I want surveillance on every approach to this building, and I want to know who took that photograph within the hour. Already working on it, Ji-yoon said. She left. Celina stood frozen, staring at the photograph still displayed on Min-Jae's phone. Some stranger had been following her, watching her, close enough to document her daily movements without her noticing. "I'm sorry," Min-Jae said quietly. "For what?" "For making you a target. This is exactly what Ji-yoon warned you about. And I let it happen anyway because I was selfish enough to want you beside me." Celina looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion carved into his features, the weight of protecting an empire while fighting a war on multiple fronts, the fear that he'd finally found something worth protecting and was about to lose it. "I'm not leaving," she said firmly. "Celina." I'm not leaving," she repeated. "You think I don't know what I signed up for? I watched you execute a traitor in a parking garage. I stood beside you while you burned Russian warehouses and orchestrated attacks that probably killed people. I'm not some innocent bystander who stumbled into your world by accident. I chose this, and I'm choosing to stay." Min-Jae stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. "Why?" he asked, finally. "After everything I've put you through. After dragging you into violence and danger and a marriage that might get you killed. Why would you stay?" Celina moved closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, close enough to notice the way his breathing changed when she was near. "Because you're the first person in my entire life who's never lied to me," she said quietly. "You're brutal and dangerous and probably damaged beyond repair. But you're honest, and somehow that matters more than safety ever did." For 3 seconds, Min-Jae didn't move. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't romantic. It was desperate and fierce and tasted like whiskey and fear and something that might have been hope if either of them was capable of that emotion anymore. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Min-Jae rested his forehead against hers. "I'm going to keep you alive," he said quietly, "whatever it costs, whoever I have to destroy. You're not dying because of me." "Then teach me how to protect myself," Celina said. "Stop treating me like something fragile that needs to be wrapped in bubble wrap. I'm your wife, your partner. Teach me how to survive in your world." Min-Jae pulled back slightly, studying her face. Then slowly, he smiled. Small, dangerous, real. "Okay," he said, "but it's going to hurt." "Everything hurts," Celina replied. "At least this way I'll know how to hurt back." They spent the next 2 days transforming Celina from a target into something closer to a threat. Min-Jae taught her how to read people, how to spot surveillance, how to identify exits and threats and opportunities in any environment. Ji-yoon taught her how to move through Min-Jae's world with authority, the subtle body language that communicated power, the precise tone that made people listen without needing to be loud. Celina absorbed everything, like she was cramming for an exam where failure meant death, because it did. On the 3rd day, Min-Jae's phone rang at 3 in the morning. Celina woke to find him sitting on the edge of the bed, his entire body rigid with tension as he listened to whoever was calling. "When?" Min-Jae asked sharply. "How many casualties?" Celina's blood went cold. Min-Jae ended the call and stood, already moving toward his closet to get dressed. "What happened?" Celina asked. "The Volkovs hit our primary warehouse in Brooklyn. 8 of my people dead. The entire facility destroyed." Min-Jae's voice was granite. "This is the biggest attack yet. They're not testing us anymore. They're trying to end us." "What do we do?" Min-Jae turned to look at her. And for the first time since she'd met him, Celina saw something close to defeat in his expression. "We fight back," he said quietly. "But I need you to understand something. This war is about to get much worse. And if we lose, if the Volkovs break through our defenses, they won't just kill me. They'll kill everyone connected to me, including you." Celina climbed out of bed. "Then we don't lose." "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is," Celina interrupted. "You taught me that everything is strategy. So what's our strategy? How do we hit them hard enough that they stop coming?" Min-Jae stared at her. Then something changed in his expression. The defeat vanished, replaced by the cold calculation that had built his empire. "We take away their protection," he said slowly. "The Volkovs operate freely because they've bought off enough politicians and law enforcement that no one touches them. We expose those connections, force federal attention onto them, make them too hot for their protectors to shield." "How?" "I have documentation, years of evidence about their operations. I've been holding it as insurance. But if we leak it to the right people, we destroy them," Celina finished. Min-Jae nodded slowly. But it's risky. If we expose them, we also expose ourselves. The evidence shows our organizations overlapping in ways that could bring federal investigations down on the Kang family, too. Do it anyway, Celina said. Better to risk investigation than guarantee destruction. Min-Jae studied her face. You're sure? I'm sure. Celina moved closer to him. You said I needed to understand what this world costs. I understand now, and I'm willing to pay the price. So stop protecting me and start treating me like an asset you can actually use. For a long moment, Min-Jae didn't respond. Then he grabbed his phone and started making calls. The next 6 hours were chaos. Min-Jae orchestrated a massive information leak that hit every major news outlet simultaneously. Documents detailing the Volkov organization's operations, names of corrupted officials, bank accounts, transaction records, video evidence of crimes that would send dozens of people to prison. It was nuclear. The federal government responded within hours, launching investigations that would probably take years to untangle. But the immediate effect was exactly what Min-Jae wanted. The Volkovs' protection vanished overnight. Suddenly they were targets instead of predators. But there were consequences. By noon, federal investigators were also looking at the Kang family's connections to the Volkovs. Questions were being asked. Pressure was building. And then Celina's phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her tap the screen. Hello? Mrs. Kang. The voice was male, Russian-accented, calm. My name is Dmitry Volkov. I believe your husband has been causing problems for my organization. Celina's breath stopped. She looked at Min-Jae, who immediately focused on her with predatory intensity. What do you want? Celina asked carefully. I want to offer you a deal, Dmitry said. Leave your husband. Walk away from the Kang family. Do that, and I'll ensure your safety. Stay, and you'll die with him when we finally break through his defenses. Not interested, Celina said flatly. You should reconsider. I'm told your father is facing federal charges. Your family's empire is collapsing. You have nothing left to lose by walking away. In fact, I could even help your father, make some of his legal problems disappear. All you have to do is divorce Kang Min-Jae and disappear. Celina's mind raced. The offer was designed to exploit exactly the weakness Dmitry thought she had: family loyalty, a way out, a chance to save her father and escape the violence. How did you get this number? Celina asked. That's not important. What's important is that you're smart enough to recognize a good offer when you hear one. Here's my counteroffer, Celina said coldly. Stop coming after my husband. Withdraw completely from New York. Do that, and maybe you'll survive the federal investigations that are about to destroy your organization. Silence on the other end. Then Dmitry laughed, low and genuinely amused. Your husband taught you well, he said, but you're still playing a game you don't fully understand. This war ends with the Kang family broken. That's inevitable. The only question is whether you die with them or walk away while you still can. The line went dead. Celina lowered the phone, her hands shaking. Min-Jae was already standing, his expression murderous. What did he say? He wants me to leave you, offered to help my father if I walk away. And I told him to go to hell. Celina met Min-Jae's eyes. But he's right about one thing. This war is escalating beyond what we can control. If we don't end it soon, it's going to end us. Min-Jae's jaw tightened. I'm working on something, a way to eliminate the Volkov leadership permanently, but it requires... His phone rang, cutting him off. He answered. What? Whatever he heard made his entire body go rigid. When? He asked sharply. Is she alive? Pause. Get her to the hospital, now. He ended the call and looked at Celina with an expression that made her stomach drop. Ji-yoon was in a car accident, Min-Jae said quietly. The brake lines were cut. Someone tried to kill her. The room tilted. Is she... She's alive, but barely. They're taking her to the hospital now. Min-Jae was already moving toward the door. This was a message. The Volkovs are coming after everyone I love, starting with my sister. Celina grabbed her jacket and followed him. They arrived at the hospital to find it surrounded by security. Min-Jae's personnel had locked down the entire floor where Ji-yoon was being treated, turning the medical facility into a fortress. Ji-yoon was in surgery. Doctors couldn't say how long it would take or what her chances were. Min-Jae stood in the hospital corridor staring at the closed surgery doors like he could will them open through sheer force of rage. Celina had never seen him like this. The control was gone. The calculation was gone. What remained was raw fear wrapped in fury that had nowhere to go. "This is my fault," Min-Jae said quietly. "I should have protected her better." "You can't protect everyone," Celina said. "I'm supposed to." Min-Jae's hands clenched into fists. "That's what being the head of this family means. Their safety is my responsibility, and I failed. Then let's make sure you don't fail again." Celina moved closer to him. "What's the plan you were talking about? The one that eliminates the Volkov leadership?" Min-Jae looked at her. "It requires someone getting close to Dmitry Volkov, close enough to plant evidence that will turn his own organization against him." "What kind of evidence?" "Proof that he's been skimming from his own operations, stealing from the Brotherhood. In their world, that's a death sentence." Min-Jae's expression was cold. "But getting close to Dmitry means walking into enemy territory. It's a suicide mission for whoever takes it." "Then send me," Celina said. Min-Jae's eyes went wide. "Absolutely not. He just called me, offered me a deal. That means he's willing to meet with me, willing to talk." Celina's mind raced. "I tell him I'm reconsidering his offer, that I need to meet in person to discuss terms. He thinks I'm weak, thinks I'm looking for a way out. He'll believe it. And then what? You plant evidence and hope you survive long enough to escape?" "Celina, this isn't This is exactly what I signed up for," Celina interrupted. "You said you needed to know if I was strong enough to stand beside you. This is how I prove it. Let me help you end this." Min-Jae stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. But standing in that hospital corridor while Min-Jae's sister fought for her life and their enemies closed in from all sides, Celina realized something fundamental. She wasn't the woman who'd walked into the Pierre Hotel wearing neon cargo pants as rebellion. She was someone new, someone harder, someone willing to walk into enemy territory and destroy a man from the inside out. "Please," Celina said quietly, "let me do this. Let me be the weapon you need." Min-Jae's expression cycled through a dozen emotions: fear, rage, desperation, and finally something that looked like pride. "Okay," he said finally, "but we do it my way. My plan. My backup. And if anything goes wrong, if you're in danger for even 1 second, you abort immediately." Agreed. They spent the next 3 hours planning the most dangerous gambit of Celina's life. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that she'd finally become exactly what this world demanded: a monster wearing a wedding ring. The meeting was set for midnight at a restaurant in Brighton Beach, Russian territory where the Volkov organization operated like they owned the streets because they did. Min-Jae's security team spent 6 hours mapping every entrance, every exit, every sightline, and potential threat within a 3-block radius. They positioned snipers on rooftops, planted surveillance equipment in vehicles parked along the street, coordinated with the few NYPD officers still loyal to the Kang family to ensure backup would arrive if things went catastrophic. But all the preparation in the world couldn't change the fundamental reality. Celina was walking into a building controlled by people who wanted her husband dead, and she was doing it alone. "The wire stays on at all times," Min-Jae said for the 4th time as the tech specialist taped the tiny microphone beneath Celina's collarbone. They were in the back of an armored SUV parked 2 blocks from the restaurant. Outside, rain hammered the streets while Min-Jae's security personnel maintained perimeter watch. "If anything feels wrong, if he touches you, if his men move toward you, if your instincts scream danger, you say the abort code and we come in hard." "What's the abort code again?" Celina asked, though she'd memorized it hours ago. "Red Winter," Min-Jae said. "Say those words, and this entire operation ends." Celina nodded. The tech specialist finished securing the wire and stepped back. She was wearing a simple black dress, elegant, expensive, nothing that would suggest she was carrying surveillance equipment or the tiny flash drive hidden in her bracelet that contained fabricated evidence of Dmitry Volkov's theft from his own organization. The plan was straightforward in theory. She'd meet with Dmitry, pretend to consider his offer to leave Min-Jae in exchange for protection and help for her father. While Dmitry was distracted trying to convince her, She'd plant the flash drive somewhere in his private office. An office she knew he'd take her to because men like Dmitri always needed to show off their power. The drive would be discovered by his own people during routine security sweeps. They'd see the evidence, turn on him, problem solved. In practice, 1,000 things could go wrong. "I need you to promise me something," Min-Jae said quietly. The tech specialist had left them alone in the SUV. Rain streaked the windows. Outside, the city waited with predatory patience. "What?" Celina asked. "If this goes bad, if the Volkovs figure out what you're doing, don't try to be a hero. Just survive. Say the abort code. Let my men extract you, and forget about the mission." Min-Jae's dark eyes held hers. "I can rebuild the organization. I can fight the Volkovs another way. But I can't replace you." The words hit harder than they should have. "You're getting sentimental," Celina said, trying for light and landing somewhere near terrified. "I'm getting honest." Min-Jae reached out and touched her face, his hand warm against her cheek. 3 weeks ago, I thought this arrangement was just strategy, a business merger disguised as marriage. But somewhere between the warehouse attack and you standing beside me while I executed a traitor, something changed." "What changed?" "I started caring whether you lived or died." Min-Jae's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "And caring is dangerous. It makes you vulnerable. Makes you hesitate when you should act. But I can't seem to stop." Celina leaned into his touch. "Then don't. You're making this harder." "Good." For 5 seconds, they just looked at each other while rain hammered the SUV and danger waited 2 blocks away. Then Min-Jae kissed her. Slow this time. Deliberate. Like he was memorizing the taste of her mouth in case it was the last chance he got. When they broke apart, Celina's heart was hammering. "Don't die," Min-Jae said quietly. "Wasn't planning on it. Plans change." "Not this one." She opened the SUV door and stepped out into the rain. The walk to the restaurant felt longer than 2 blocks. Celina's heels clicked against wet pavement, while her mind cycled through everything that could go wrong. The wire could be detected. The flash drive could be discovered before she planted it. Dmitri could see through her performance and realize she was playing him. Any of those scenarios ended with her dead. But she kept walking, because turning back wasn't an option anymore. The restaurant was called Zoloto, Russian for gold. The exterior looked deceptively normal. Red awning, warm light spilling through the windows. A few customers visible inside enjoying late dinners. But Celina noticed the security cameras. The men standing near the entrance trying to look casual and failing. The black SUVs parked with engines running. This wasn't a restaurant. It was a fortress pretending to be one. Celina approached the entrance. One of the men stepped forward, his hand already moving toward the weapon concealed beneath his jacket. "Celina Kang," she said calmly. "Dmitri is expecting me." The man spoke into a radio, received confirmation, then gestured toward the door. "Inside, 2nd floor. Someone will escort you." Celina walked into the restaurant. The ground floor was exactly what it appeared to be. Normal customers eating normal food, while oblivious to the fact that the 2nd floor housed one of the most dangerous criminal organizations on the East Coast. A woman appeared at the base of the stairs. Mid-30s. Beautiful in a cold way. Dressed like she could kill someone and still make dinner reservations afterward. "Mrs. Kang," the woman said in Russian-accented English. "Follow me." They climbed the stairs. The 2nd floor was different. No customers. Just men with guns stationed at strategic positions throughout the space. The walls were decorated with expensive art that had probably been stolen. The furniture was leather and dark wood. Everything designed to communicate power and wealth built on violence. The woman led Celina down a hallway to a private office at the back of the building. She knocked once, then opened the door. "Your guest," the woman announced. Dmitri Volkov sat behind a massive desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of mahogany. He was maybe 45, gray threading through his dark hair, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Handsome in a brutal way, the kind of man who smiled while ordering executions. "Mrs. Kang," Dmitri said, standing. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit." Celina sat in the chair across from him. The door closed behind her. Through the walls, she could hear muffled conversations and footsteps, security personnel maintaining constant watch. "Can I offer you a drink?" Dmitri asked. "No, thank you." Wise. Never accept drinks from your enemies. Dmitri poured himself vodka. Though I hope we won't be enemies much longer. That depends on what you're offering. Dmitri smiled. Direct. I appreciate that. Your husband has that same quality. It's almost a shame we're on opposite sides of this conflict. Almost? Well, he did leak documents that are currently destroying my organization, so the sympathy only goes so far. Dmitri sipped his vodka. But that's business, nothing personal. Trying to kill his sister seems pretty personal, an unfortunate necessity. I needed to send a message that the Kong family isn't untouchable. Dmitri's expression didn't change. How is Ji-yoon, by the way? I heard the surgery went well. Rage flared in Celina's chest, but she kept her voice level. She'll survive. Good. I'd hate for her death to be what finally breaks your husband. That would be anticlimactic. Celina's hands curled into fists beneath the table. Every instinct screamed at her to launch herself across the desk and claw out Dmitri's eyes. But she forced herself to breathe, to remember the plan, to focus on the mission instead of the fury. You said you could help my father, Celina said carefully. How? I have connections in federal law enforcement, judges, prosecutors, people who owe me favors. Dmitri leaned back in his chair. One phone call, and your father's investigation loses momentum. Evidence disappears. Witnesses change their testimony. Within 6 months, the charges get quietly dropped, and Richard Arden returns to his empire relatively unscathed. In exchange for what? You leave your husband, file for divorce, disappear somewhere safe where the Kang family can't find you. Dmitri's eyes glinted. Your marriage was always strategic, a business arrangement. There's no reason to die for it now that it's served its purpose. What makes you think I want to leave? Because you're smart enough to recognize a losing position. Dmitri stood and walked toward the window overlooking Brighton Beach. Rain lashed the glass. Your husband's organization is fracturing. The federal investigations I triggered with that information leak are exposing connections he can't afford to have exposed. His allies are distancing themselves. His enemies are circling. Within a month, maybe 2, the Kang Empire collapses completely, and everyone standing beside him when it falls dies in the rubble. He turned to face her. Unless they're smart enough to step aside first. Celina stood slowly. Can I see your view? Dmitri gestured toward the window. Of course. Celina moved toward him, her heart hammering. This was it, the moment she'd planned for. Dmitri's attention was on the street below, pointing out various landmarks of his territory. His desk was behind her. The flash drive was in her bracelet. She just needed 5 seconds. You built an impressive operation, Celina said, keeping her voice steady. Min-Jae talks about you like you're the only opponent he's ever actually respected. The feeling is mutual. Your husband is brilliant, ruthless, strategic. Dmitri smiled. Under different circumstances, we could have been allies instead of enemies. Celina's hand moved to her bracelet. Her fingers found the clasp. The flash drive came free, tiny and innocuous in her palm. What changed? She asked, still focused on Dmitri while her hand moved behind her back toward the desk. What made this conflict inevitable? Ambition, Dmitri said simply. New York isn't big enough for both our organizations. One of us had to… He stopped mid-sentence. His eyes flicked downward to where Celina's hand was reaching toward his desk. For one frozen second, neither of them moved. Then Dmitri lunged. He grabbed Celina's wrist with brutal force, twisting it until she cried out. The flash drive fell from her grip, hitting the desk with a tiny click that sounded deafening in the sudden silence. Dmitri stared at it, then at Celina. Then his expression went from surprise to cold fury. "Search her!" he barked. The door burst open. 2 of his men rushed in. Celina tried to fight, but they were professionals. Within seconds, they'd pinned her arms and found the wire taped beneath her collarbone. One of them ripped it free, the adhesive tearing skin. Dmitri picked up the flash drive, examining it like it was a live grenade. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Celina's mind raced. The plan was blown. Her cover was destroyed. And any second now, Dmitri was going to look at the flash drive's contents and realize she'd been trying to plant evidence against him. "Red Winter," Celina said clearly into the wire that was now crushed on the floor, but might still be transmitting. "Red Winter, Red Winter, Red…" One of Dimitri's men hit her, hard. Her vision exploded with stars. Blood filled her mouth. "Soundproof the room," Dimitri ordered. "And get me a laptop. I want to see what my new friend was trying to plant in my office." The men moved with efficient brutality. Soundproofing panels slid into place over the windows and door, equipment clearly installed for exactly this kind of situation. A laptop appeared on the desk. Dimitri plugged in the flash drive and opened the files. Celina watched his expression shift from curiosity to understanding to volcanic rage. "You tried to frame me," Dimitri said softly. "Fabricate evidence that I've been stealing from my own organization. Turn my people against me." He looked at Celina with something approaching respect. "Your husband taught you well. This would have worked if you'd been faster." "Red Winter," Celina said again, blood dripping from her split lip. "Red Winter. Red—" Dimitri nodded to one of his men, who hit her again. Harder this time. Celina's knees buckled. Only the men holding her arms kept her upright. "Your husband can't hear you," Dimitri said. "The room is sealed. No signal gets in or out. As far as Kang Min-Jae knows, you're still conducting a successful infiltration." He smiled. "But in about 10 minutes, he's going to realize something's wrong. He'll come for you. And when he does, we'll be ready." Celina spat blood onto Dimitri's expensive carpet. "You won't kill him." "No," Dimitri agreed. "I won't. But I will make him watch while I kill you, slowly, painfully, breaking the thing he cares about most before I finally end him." He leaned closer. "That's the real strategy, Mrs. Kang. Don't just defeat your enemies. Make them suffer first." Through the ringing in her ears, Celina heard footsteps. Lots of them. Dimitri's entire security force mobilizing for the attack they knew was coming. Min-Jae was walking into a trap, and it was entirely her fault. Outside the soundproofed office, Min-Jae's extraction team had been waiting for Celina's abort code. When Red Winter came through the wire, they moved immediately. 4 SUVs converged on the restaurant from different directions. Snipers on nearby rooftops activated. Min-Jae's best tactical personnel breached the ground floor entrance with overwhelming force, but they were 30 seconds too late. By the time they realized the second floor was sealed and soundproofed, Dimitri's people had already fortified their positions. What should have been a quick extraction turned into a firefight that spilled out onto Brighton Beach's rain-soaked streets. Min-Jae watched it unfold from his command SUV, every muscle in his body screaming at him to charge into the building himself. But Chen grabbed his arm. "You go in there. You die," Chen said flatly. "Let the tactical team handle it." "She's in there," Min-Jae snarled. "I know, but dying beside her doesn't save her. It just gives Dimitri everything he wants." Min-Jae's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. "Kang," Dimitri's voice said calmly. "I have your wife. She's alive. For now." Min-Jae's blood went ice cold. "If you hurt her, you'll what? You're currently trapped outside my building while my men slaughter yours. You have no leverage, no advantage. Nothing except the knowledge that your wife is suffering because you were arrogant enough to think you could outmaneuver me. What do you want?" "I want you to understand something," Dimitri said. "This war was always going to end with one of us destroyed. I'm simply ensuring it ends with you. Your wife's death is just the opening move." The line went dead. Min-Jae stared at his phone. Around him, the firefight continued. His men were falling back, outgunned and outpositioned. The restaurant had become a fortress he couldn't breach without massive casualties. And Celina was inside, trapped, injured, alone. For the first time in his adult life, Kang Min-Jae felt genuine terror. "We need to pull back," Chen said. "Regroup. Come up with a new strategy." "There is no strategy," Min-Jae said quietly. "Every second we wait, she's in more danger. Every second we charge in blindly, we lose more men." Min-Jae turned to look at Chen. "How many of our people are left?" 12 inside the building, maybe 20 outside maintaining perimeter, but Dimitri has 3 times that number and they're dug in. "Then we level the building." Chen's eyes went wide. "You can't be serious." "Call the demolition team, the one we use for warehouse removals. Tell them I need charges planted on every support pillar in that restaurant within the next 20 minutes. "Min-Jae, your wife is the—" "I know where my wife is," Min-Jae interrupted, "and I'm betting Dimitri knows I won't destroy the building with her inside. That's his advantage. So we remove it. How? We make him think we're retreating, pull our people back, let him believe he's won. Then we breach from an unexpected direction, through the basement, through the roof, I don't care, and we extract Celina before the charges blow. Chen stared at him. That's insane. It's the only play we have left. For 3 seconds, Chen looked like he might argue. Then he pulled out his phone and started making calls. Inside the sealed office, Celina was learning exactly how creative Dimitri's people could be about causing pain without causing death. They'd tied her to a chair, broken 2 of her fingers, split her lip open wider. And through it all, Dimitri watched with clinical interest. "Your husband has gone quiet," Dimitri said, checking his phone. "His tactical team is pulling back. I think he's realized this is a fight he can't win." Celina's vision swam. Every breath hurt. But she forced herself to focus, to think. Min-Jae wouldn't abandon her. She knew that with absolute certainty, which meant he was planning something Dimitri wasn't expecting. "He'll come for me," Celina said through split lips. "Of course he will, and when he does, we'll kill him." Dimitri crouched in front of her. "But first, I want you to understand something. This whole arrangement between our families, the marriage, the alliance, the strategic positioning, it was doomed from the start. Not because either of us lacks intelligence or strength, but because you tried to exist in a world that doesn't allow for weakness, and love is the ultimate weakness." "Love didn't make me weak," Celina said. "It made me dangerous." Dimitri smiled. "We'll see." He stood and walked toward the door. "Keep her alive. When Kang makes his move, I want her conscious enough to watch him die." The door opened, closed. Dimitri was gone. Celina was alone with 2 guards who looked bored with their assignment. She tested her restraints. The zip ties cutting into her wrists were professional grade, probably reinforced. Breaking free wasn't an option, but that didn't mean she was helpless. "Your boss is making a mistake," Celina said to the guards. They didn't respond. "He thinks Min-Jae will charge in here like an idiot, but that's not how my husband operates. He's smarter than that, more patient." One of the guards shifted slightly, interested despite himself. "Right now, Min-Jae is probably rigging this entire building to explode," Celina continued. "He'll extract me first, obviously, but you two, you're expendable. Dimitri won't warn you when the charges are about to blow. He'll be long gone, and you'll be standing here guarding a corpse when the building comes down." "Shut up," one of the guards said, but his voice wavered. "How much is Dimitri paying you?" Celina asked. "Is it enough to die for?" "I said shut up." "Because I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing you're just following orders because that's what you've always done. But orders don't matter when you're dead." The guard moved toward her, hand raised to strike. The building shook. Not violently, just a tremor, like something heavy had impacted the structure below them. Both guards froze. "That would be my husband," Celina said calmly, "coming through the basement." Another impact, closer this time. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The guards looked at each other. Fear flickered across their faces. "You can run," Celina said. "Leave me here. Get out of the building before it collapses. Or you can stay and hope Dimitri remembers you exist when he's evacuating." A third impact, this one directly below them. The floor shuddered. One of the guards bolted, just ran for the door, and disappeared down the hallway. The remaining guards stared at Celina with an expression caught between duty and survival instinct. "Go," Celina said. "I won't tell anyone you left." The guard hesitated for 5 more seconds. Then he ran too. Celina was alone. Her hands were still zip-tied to the chair. Her fingers were broken. Blood dripped from her split lip onto her dress. But she was alone. And that meant she had a chance. She threw her weight sideways, tipping the chair. She hit the ground hard, fresh pain exploding through her injured ribs. But the impact was enough to crack one of the chair legs. She threw her weight again. The leg splintered. Another impact. The chair broke apart. Her hands were still zip-tied, but she was no longer restrained to furniture. The door burst open. Min-Jae stood in the doorway, covered in dust and blood that probably wasn't his. Behind him, his tactical team moved through the hallway with military precision. "Celina," Min-Jae said, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm okay," Celina lied. "Get these zip ties off." Min-Jae crossed the room in 3 strides. He cut through her restraints with a knife that appeared from somewhere. His hands were shaking. "Can you walk?" he asked. I can run if I have to. You have to. He pulled her to her feet. Fresh pain exploded through her broken fingers, but Celina gritted her teeth and followed Min-Jae out of the office. The hallway was chaos. Dimitri's men were evacuating toward multiple exits while Min-Jae's team fought to control the extraction route. Gunfire echoed through the building. Someone was screaming. Smoke filled the air from something burning on the ground floor. Basement entrance, Min-Jae said into his radio. 30 seconds. They ran through the firefight. Min-Jae's body stayed between Celina and any potential threats, using himself as a human shield while his team cleared their path. They reached a stairwell. Descended. The basement smelled like mold and explosives. A hole had been blown through the basement wall, creating a tunnel that led to an adjacent building. Min-Jae's demolition team had literally burrowed under Brighton Beach to reach her. Go, Min-Jae said, pushing Celina toward the tunnel. Chen's waiting on the other side with a medic. What about you? I'm right behind you. But the way he said it made Celina stop. Min-Jae, go, he shouted. Celina ran into the tunnel. Behind her, she heard Min-Jae shouting orders into his radio, coordinating the retreat, making sure his people got out before the building came down. She emerged in the basement of an abandoned building 3 doors down from the restaurant. Chen grabbed her immediately, pulling her toward a waiting SUV where a medic started treating her injuries before they'd even left the extraction site. Where's Min-Jae? Celina demanded. Still inside, Chen said grimly, coordinating the retreat. You have to go back for him. He'll come out when everyone else is clear. That's how he operates. Celina watched through the SUV's rear window as the restaurant 3 buildings away began to collapse. Not dramatically, not all at once, but floor by floor as the support charges Min-Jae's team had planted did their work. Dimitri's fortress was coming down, and Min-Jae was still inside. No, Celina whispered. No, 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 oh. A figure burst from the tunnel entrance, covered in dust and moving fast. Min-Jae sprinted toward the SUV as the building behind him continued its controlled collapse. He dove into the vehicle, and the driver accelerated before the door was fully closed. Celina grabbed Min-Jae, pulling him close enough to confirm he was real and alive and bleeding from a dozen minor cuts, but fundamentally intact. You insane bastard, she said. Had to make sure everyone got out, Min-Jae replied, his breathing ragged. You almost died. Almost doesn't count. Behind them, the restaurant that had served as Dmitry Volkov's headquarters finished collapsing. Emergency vehicles were already screaming toward the scene. Police, fire trucks, ambulances responding to what would officially be recorded as a structural failure caused by aging infrastructure and illegal construction modifications. Not a war between criminal organizations that had just reached its climax. Did we get him? Celina asked. Dmitry, did he make it out? Min-Jae's expression went dark. I don't know. If he was still inside when the building came down, he's dead. If he evacuated with his people, he's wounded and on the run but still dangerous. So this isn't over. Not even close. They rode in silence while the medic continued working on Celina's injuries. Her broken fingers were splinted, her split lip was cleaned, but the pain radiating through her entire body suggested internal damage that would take more than field medicine to address. You need a hospital, the medic said. No hospitals, Min-Jae replied immediately. Too exposed. Take us to the safe house in Queens. I have a doctor on call there. The safe house turned out to be a fortified apartment in a building Min-Jae owned under 17 layers of shell companies. By the time they arrived, Celina was drifting in and out of consciousness. The pain medication the medic had given her was strong enough to blur the edges of reality. She woke hours later in a bed she didn't recognize. Sunlight streamed through reinforced windows. Her entire body felt like it had been hit by a truck, then backed over for good measure. Min-Jae sat in a chair beside the bed, still covered in dust and dried blood, staring at his phone with an expression that promised violence. You're awake, he said when he noticed her eyes open. Unfortunately. Celina tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. What's the damage? 2 broken fingers, cracked ribs, concussion, various cuts and bruises. The doctor said you'll heal, but it's going to take time. Min-Jae set down his phone. You shouldn't have gone in there. Yes, I should have. You almost died. But I didn't. Celina managed to prop herself up slightly. Did we at least accomplish anything? Min-Jae's expression shifted. Dmitri survived. He got out before the building collapsed, but the attack destroyed his infrastructure. His people are scattered. His protection is gone. And the flash drive you were trying to plant? We recovered it from the rubble and leaked the information anyway. Different method, same result. So we won? We survived, Min-Jae corrected. Winning comes later, after we've eliminated every last threat. Celina studied his face, saw the exhaustion carved into every line, the weight of leading an organization through a war that kept escalating beyond anyone's control. Come here, she said. You need rest. I need you to stop hovering 6 feet away like I'm made of glass. Celina patted the bed beside her. Come here. Min-Jae hesitated. Then slowly, he stood and sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle her injuries. Celina reached out with her non-broken hand and touched his face. We're still alive. That's not nothing. You were tortured because of me. I was tortured because I chose to walk into enemy territory. That was my decision. A decision you made because I couldn't protect you any other way. Min-Jae. Celina waited until he met her eyes. Stop trying to carry everything alone. We're partners now, for better or worse. That was the deal. Something cracked in Min-Jae's expression. The controlled mask slipped, revealing the man underneath, exhausted, terrified, barely holding together. I thought I lost you, he said quietly. When the wire went dead and the abort code stopped transmitting, for 30 seconds I thought you were gone, and in those 30 seconds I realized that I would burn down the entire city to get you back. That's probably not healthy. Nothing about us is healthy. Min-Jae's thumb brushed across her uninjured cheek. But it's real. And that's more than most people get. They sat in silence while sunlight painted patterns across the bed, and somewhere outside, New York continued spinning without them. Then Min-Jae's phone rang. He checked the screen, frowned, answered. What? He said sharply. Whatever he heard made his entire body go rigid. When? He asked. How many casualties? Pause. Lock down everything. I'm on my way. He ended the call and stood. What happened? Celina asked, though she already knew it would be bad. The Volkovs just hit 3 of our remaining operations simultaneously, Min-Jae said. They're not retreating. They're escalating. This isn't a war anymore. What is it? Min-Jae's expression was granite. Mutually assured destruction. Dmitri knows he's finished, so he's taking as many of us down with him as possible before the end. Then we end it first, Celina said, forcing herself to sit up despite the pain screaming through her ribs. No more half measures, no more strategic positioning. We find Dmitri Volkov and we eliminate him, permanently. Min-Jae stared at her. You can barely stand. So get me painkillers and a weapon. Celina met his eyes. I didn't survive torture and a building collapse just to hide in a safe house, while our enemies destroy everything we've built. Either we finish this together, or we both go down fighting. Your choice. For 5 seconds, Min-Jae looked like he might argue. Then slowly, terribly, he smiled. Okay, he said. Let's end this. And standing in that fortified apartment while their empire burned around them and enemies closed in from all sides, Kang Min-Jae and Celina Kang prepared for the final battle that would determine whether they survived or joined the countless others who'd tried to build power in a world designed to tear it down. The intelligence came through at 3 a.m. One of Min-Jae's informants, a low-level operative in the Volkov organization who'd been feeding information for months, reported that Dmitri was hiding in a warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn, injured from the restaurant collapse, protected by only a skeleton crew because most of his people had either fled or been killed in the escalating war. It was almost certainly a trap, but it was also their best chance to end this. Celina sat in the war room of Min-Jae's safe house, her broken fingers splinted, her ribs taped, painkillers coursing through her system in amounts that probably weren't medically advisable. Around her, Min-Jae's remaining personnel prepared for what everyone understood would be a final assault. Weapons were checked, body armor distributed, extraction routes mapped and memorized. You're not coming, Min-Jae said for the 3rd time. Yes, I am, Celina replied for the 4th. You can barely walk. Then I'll crawl. Celina stood, ignoring the pain that radiated through her entire body. We started this together. We end it together. That was the deal. Min-Jae's jaw tightened. He looked like he wanted to argue, to physically restrain her if necessary. But something in Celina's expression stopped him. She wasn't asking for permission anymore. She was informing him of a decision already made. "Fine," Min-Jae said finally. "But you stay in the secondary vehicle. You don't enter the warehouse. And the second things go wrong, you evacuate with Chen, non-negotiable." Agreed. It was a lie, and they both knew it. But Min-Jae didn't have time to argue further. The assault team was ready. Every minute they delayed gave Dmitri more time to fortify or relocate. They loaded into 3 SUVs and drove through Manhattan's pre-dawn darkness toward Brooklyn. The city was still sleeping, oblivious to the fact that a war was about to reach its conclusion in an abandoned warehouse where the East River met industrial decay. Celina rode in the second vehicle with Chen and 2 other security personnel. Her hand rested on a pistol Min-Jae had given her, smaller than the ones his tactical team carried, but deadly enough at close range. The weight of it felt foreign and natural at the same time. 3 weeks ago, she'd never held a gun. Now it felt like an extension of her arm. The warehouse appeared through the SUV's windshield like something from a nightmare. 4 stories of rusted metal and broken windows, surrounded by empty lots and abandoned buildings that provided excellent cover for an ambush. Security lights had been shot out, leaving the entire area bathed in pre-dawn shadows. Min-Jae's voice crackled through the radio. 2 teams, north and south entrances simultaneously. I go through the north with primary assault. Chen, you maintain perimeter security and cover the east exit. If Dmitri runs, he comes your way. Understood, Chen replied. The SUVs split up, positioning themselves around the warehouse. Celina watched through tinted windows as Min-Jae's team moved into position. Dark shapes against darker shadows, moving with practiced efficiency toward a building that radiated danger. Then Min-Jae's team breached. The sound of gunfire erupted immediately. Muzzle flashes lit up the warehouse windows like strobes. Radio chatter exploded with tactical updates and casualty reports. Chen maintained position near the east exit, his weapon trained on the door, ready for Dmitri to make a run for it. But Celina's instincts were screaming that something was wrong. The gunfire was too concentrated, too controlled. Like Dmitri's skeleton crew was fighting from prepared positions instead of scrambling to defend against a surprise attack. They'd known the assault was coming. "Chen," Celina said urgently, "this is a trap. We need to pull them out." "They're already committed," Chen replied, his eyes never leaving the warehouse entrance. Pulling back now would be... An explosion ripped through the north side of the warehouse. The shockwave was powerful enough to rock the SUV. Flames erupted from the ground floor, illuminating the entire structure in hellish orange light. Through the radio, Celina heard screaming, shouting, Min-Jae's voice cutting through the chaos trying to coordinate a retreat. "They had explosives rigged," Chen said, his voice tight. "The entire north entrance was a kill zone." Celina's blood went cold. "Where's Min-Jae?" Chen spoke into the radio. "Primary team, report. Is Min-Jae—" "He's alive!" someone responded, their voice cracking with static. "Injured but mobile. We're falling back to the south exit, but it's blocked. Dmitri's people have us pinned." "East exit," Chen said immediately. "Bring him to the east exit. We'll provide cover." "Negative. East exit is compromised. Repeat, east exit is—" The transmission cut off. Chen's expression went from focused to horrified in the span of a heartbeat. He threw open the SUV door and stepped out, weapon raised, scanning for threats. That's when Celina saw them. 6 men emerging from the abandoned building adjacent to their position, moving with tactical precision, weapons raised. Dmitri's remaining crew, flanking from an angle Chen hadn't covered because the intelligence had said there were only a skeleton crew inside the warehouse. The intelligence had been wrong, or deliberately false. "Chen!" Celina screamed. Chen turned, saw the threat, started to bring his weapon around. He was 3 seconds too slow. Gunfire erupted. Chen went down, blood spreading across his chest. The other 2 security personnel in Celina's vehicle returned fire, but they were outnumbered and outpositioned. Celina made a decision. She threw open her door on the opposite side of the vehicle, using the SUV as cover, and ran toward the warehouse's east exit. Her broken fingers screamed with every movement. Her cracked ribs felt like knives stabbing into her lungs. But she kept moving, because Min-Jae was trapped inside that burning building, and she was not leaving without him. The east exit was a loading dock door half open and belching smoke. Celina ducked inside, immediately choking on the acrid air. The interior of the warehouse was chaos. Flames climbed the walls. Structural supports groaned under damage from the explosion. Somewhere in the darkness, gunfire continued in sporadic bursts. "Min-Jae!" Celina shouted. Her voice was swallowed by the roar of fire and collapsing infrastructure. She moved deeper into the warehouse, the pistol heavy in her hand, her eyes streaming from smoke. Bodies littered the ground, both Min-Jae's people and Dimitri's caught in the kill zone the explosion had created. Then she heard it. Voices. Speaking Korean. Min-Jae's voice, tight with pain but still giving orders. Celina followed the sound through a maze of shipping containers and industrial equipment. She found them huddled behind a concrete support pillar, Min-Jae and 4 surviving members of his assault team. Min-Jae's left arm hung at a wrong angle, probably broken. Blood streamed from a cut above his eye. But he was alive. "Celina?" Min-Jae's expression cycled through shock, relief, and fury. "What the hell are you doing here? Chen's down. The east exit is our only way out. But Dimitri's people are outside waiting for us to run." Celina crouched beside him. "We're trapped." "I know." Min-Jae gestured toward the far side of the warehouse where a stairway led to the upper floors. "Dimitri's up there. Second floor office. He's been watching this entire time, waiting for us to either burn or evacuate into his ambush." Celina followed his gaze. Through the smoke, she could see a figure standing in the broken window of the second floor office. Too far away to identify clearly. But something about the posture suggested satisfaction. Dmitry Volkov, watching his enemies die. "I'm going up there," Celina said. Min-Jae's eyes went wide. "Absolutely not. He won't expect me. His people are focused on you and your team. I can move through the smoke, get to the stairway, reach him before he realizes what's happening." "And then what? You're injured. He's a trained killer. You'll die." "Maybe." Celina checked her pistol's magazine, still fully loaded. "But at least one of us will take him with me, and that ends the war." Min-Jae grabbed her arm with his good hand. "Celina, listen to me." "No." Celina met his eyes. "You listen to me. 3 weeks ago, I was a woman trapped in a life I didn't choose, waiting for someone to give me permission to exist. Then I married you. And you taught me that survival means making the hard choices, taking the risks no one else will take, becoming the monster the situation demands." She pulled free from his grip. "This is me making the hard choice." Before Min-Jae could stop her, Celina moved. She ran through the smoke-filled warehouse, using the chaos as cover. Flames cast dancing shadows across the walls. The structural groaning grew louder, suggesting the entire building was close to collapse. But Celina kept moving toward the stairway that led to Dimitri's position. She reached the stairs, climbed. Each step sent fresh pain through her cracked ribs, but she gritted her teeth and continued. The second floor was less damaged than the first. The explosion had been designed to create a kill zone at ground level while leaving Dimitri's observation position intact. Smart, tactical. Exactly what Celina would have done if their positions were reversed. She moved through a hallway lined with offices that had probably once housed legitimate businesses before the warehouse was abandoned. At the end of the hall, light spilled from an open doorway, the office overlooking the warehouse floor. Dimitri's position. Celina approached slowly, pistol raised, her breathing shallow to minimize noise. Through the doorway she could see him, standing at the window, phone to his ear, speaking Russian in calm, measured tones while the building burned around him. He hadn't heard her approach. Celina stepped into the doorway, raised her weapon, aimed at the center of Dimitri's back. "Get off the phone," she said. Dmitri went very still. Then, slowly, he lowered the phone and ended the call without turning around. "Mrs. Kang," he said calmly, "I wondered if you'd survive the trap. Your husband's assault was predictable, but you continue to surprise me." "Turn around." Dmitri turned. His face was bruised from the restaurant collapse. One arm was in a makeshift sling, but his expression remained composed, almost amused. "Are you going to shoot me?" he asked. "That's the plan." "Then why haven't you pulled the trigger?" Dmitri took a step toward her. "Because killing someone is harder than you think, especially when they're unarmed and looking you in the eye. It requires a certain brutality that most people don't possess. I'm not most people anymore. No, Dmitri agreed. You're not. You're Kang Min-jae's wife, the woman who walked into my restaurant planning to frame me. The woman who survived torture without breaking. You've become exactly what this world demands. He took another step closer. But that transformation has a cost. You can feel it, can't you? The weight of what you've become. The person you used to be is gone. And the person you are now, she's capable of terrible things, including murder. Celina's hand shook slightly. The pistol felt heavier with each passing second. You're trying to make me hesitate, she said. I'm trying to make you understand. Dmitri's voice softened. This war between our families, it was never personal. It was business, competition, two organizations fighting over the same territory. But your husband made it personal when he married you, when he turned a strategic alliance into something that mattered. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that killing me won't end anything. Dmitri gestured toward the window overlooking the burning warehouse. Even if I die tonight, my organization will continue. New leadership will emerge. They'll hunt your husband, hunt you, hunt everyone connected to the Kang family until the debt is paid. Then we'll deal with them too. For how long? Dmitri's expression was almost sympathetic. How many people are you willing to kill to protect what you've built? 10, 100. Where does it end? Celina's finger tightened on the trigger. It ends with you. Does it? Dmitri smiled. Or does it end with you realizing that the only way to truly escape this life is to walk away from it? Leave your husband. Disappear. Start over somewhere the violence can't find you. That's real survival, Mrs. Kang. Not this. For 3 seconds, Celina's mind raced through alternatives. She could walk away. Take Dmitri's advice. Disappear into a life where she wasn't constantly looking over her shoulder for the next threat. Where broken fingers and cracked ribs weren't occupational hazards. Where she could be someone other than the monster she'd become. But that version of her life was a fantasy. Because the woman who could walk away from Kang Min-Jae had died weeks ago in a courthouse ceremony that transformed everything. You're right about one thing, Celina said quietly. Killing you won't end the war, but it will send a message that the Kang family doesn't negotiate with people who torture their own, doesn't compromise with people who try to murder us in our sleep, and definitely doesn't show mercy to people who threaten everyone we love. She pulled the trigger. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Dmitri stumbled backward, his expression shifting from composed to shocked. He looked down at the spreading bloodstain on his chest, like he couldn't quite believe it was real. You actually did it, he said, his voice weakening. I told you I would. Dmitri's legs gave out. He collapsed against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting in a position that might have looked comfortable if not for the blood pooling beneath him. Your husband was right about you, Dmitri said, each word coming harder. You're dangerous. Not because you're violent, but because you're willing to become whatever the situation demands. That's what survival looks like. No. Dmitri's breathing was labored now, wet. That's what transformation looks like. And transformations can't be undone. His eyes went unfocused. His breathing stopped. Dmitri Volkov, head of one of the most powerful Russian criminal organizations on the East Coast, died sitting against a wall in a burning warehouse while his empire collapsed around him. Celina stood over his body, the pistol still smoking in her hand, and felt absolutely nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction, no relief, just the cold recognition that she'd killed a man and the world would keep spinning anyway. Behind her, footsteps. Celina turned to find Min-Jae standing in the doorway, his good arm supporting his broken one, his face a mask of controlled emotion. Is he dead? Min-Jae asked. Yes. Min-Jae moved into the office, looking down at Dmitri's body, then at Celina, then back to the body. How do you feel? He asked quietly. Empty. That's normal. The first time you kill someone, you expect to feel something dramatic, but mostly it's just empty. Celina looked at him. How many times have you felt that emptiness? Too many to count. They stood in silence while the warehouse groaned beneath them and flames climbed higher toward the second floor. We need to leave, Min-Jae said finally. This building won't last much longer. Your team already evacuated through a gap in Dmitri's perimeter. They're waiting at the extraction point. Min-Jae's expression softened slightly. They thought you were insane for running into a burning building. I told them you were. And yet here we are. Here we are. They walked out of the office together, leaving Dimitri's body to burn with the rest of his operation. The stairway was more treacherous now, flames having spread to the second floor. But they moved carefully, Min-Jae leaning on Celina despite his insistence that he could manage alone. They reached the ground floor to find it completely engulfed. The east exit was blocked by collapsed debris. The north entrance was still a kill zone. The only way out was through a gap in the south wall where the explosion had weakened the structure enough to create an impromptu exit. They climbed through twisted metal and smoking rubble, emerging into Brooklyn's pre-dawn air. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance. Police and fire trucks responding to reports of explosions and gunfire. Min-Jae's remaining security personnel were waiting in the SUVs, engines running, ready to evacuate before law enforcement arrived. They drove through empty streets while the warehouse burned behind them, collapsing floor by floor until nothing remained but rubble and ash and the ghosts of everyone who died there. No one spoke during the drive back to Manhattan. What was there to say? They'd survived, barely, at a cost that would take years to fully calculate. Chen was dead. 8 more of Min-Jae's people had died in the assault. Dmitry Volkov was dead, but his organization would fracture and metastasize into smaller, more unpredictable threats. This wasn't victory. It was just survival with a body count. The safe house felt different when they returned, less like a fortress and more like a tomb. Min-Jae's personnel moved through it with the exhausted efficiency of soldiers who'd just survived a battle they'd expected to lose. A doctor was waiting to treat their injuries. Min-Jae's broken arm was set and placed in a proper cast. Celina's broken fingers were resplinted. Her cracked ribs were examined and deemed not life-threatening but requiring weeks of careful healing. When the doctor finally left them alone, Min-Jae and Celina sat in the living room watching dawn break over Manhattan through reinforced windows. "What happens now?" Celina asked quietly. "We rebuild," Min-Jae said. "The organization took massive damage, but the infrastructure is still intact. We'll absorb what's left of Dimitri's operations. Consolidate power. Within 6 months, we'll be stronger than before." "That's not what I meant." Min-Jae looked at her. "Then what did you mean?" "Us." Celina turned to face him. "We got married as a strategic alliance, to protect our families, to consolidate power. But everything that happened after, the warehouse attacks, the torture, killing Dmitri, none of that was strategy. That was survival. And I need to know if what we have is real, or if it's just trauma bonding disguised as partnership." Min-Jae was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her non-broken hand in his. "3 weeks ago, I would have told you this marriage was pure strategy," he said quietly. "That emotions were liabilities and attachment was dangerous. But you changed that, not because you were perfect or easy or safe, but because you refused to be anything other than exactly who you are, even when that meant becoming someone you didn't recognize." He squeezed her hand gently. "So yes, this is real. It's messy and violent and probably unhealthy by any normal standard, but it's real." Celina felt something crack in her chest, not breaking, shifting, making room for something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in weeks. Hope. "I killed someone tonight," she said quietly. "I know. And I don't regret it. That's what scares me. I should feel guilt, horror, something. But all I feel is relief that he's dead and we're alive." "That's normal," Min-Jae said. "In this world, guilt is a luxury you can't afford. You do what's necessary and you learn to live with it." "Is that what you've been doing? Learning to live with it?" "Every day for the past 15 years. Celina studied his face, saw the weight of every decision he'd made, every life he'd taken, every compromise he'd accepted in service of survival. "I don't want to become that," she said quietly. "Someone who's just learning to live with the terrible things they've done." "Then what do you want?" "I want to build something that matters. Not just an empire, not just power, something that justifies the cost of what we've become." Celina met his eyes. "You said you were transitioning to legitimate business, making the Kang family respectable. Let's actually do that, not as a cover, as the mission." Min-Jae's expression shifted. "That would take years, maybe decades. And it would mean giving up parts of the operation that generate the most profit. But it would mean our children, if we ever have children, wouldn't grow up in a world where warehouse explosions and torture are normal, where survival means killing people before they kill you. Celina's voice strengthened. We've both lost too much to this life. Let's build something better. For 10 seconds, Min-Jae didn't respond. Then slowly, he nodded. Okay, he said. We'll do it your way. Full transition to legitimate operations. It'll be dangerous. A lot of people in our organization won't like it, but we'll make it work. Together? Together. They sat in silence while Manhattan woke up beyond the windows, oblivious to the fact that two people in a safe house had just decided to try being something other than monsters. The next 3 months were brutal in ways that had nothing to do with violence. Min-Jae began systematically dismantling the criminal operations that had built the Kang Empire. Money laundering networks were shut down. Underground casinos were sold to legitimate operators. Political corruption was severed, burning bridges with officials who'd been on the payroll for years. Some of Min-Jae's people accepted the transition. Others didn't. 2 senior advisors quit. 3 tried to stage a coup that ended with them in federal custody after Min-Jae anonymously tipped off investigators. 1 attempted to have Min-Jae killed and ended up in a position where he chose exile over execution. It was messy, expensive, painful. But slowly the Kang family began transforming into something that resembled a legitimate business empire. Real estate development, private security consulting, international trade partnerships with companies in Seoul and Tokyo. The profit margins were lower than the criminal operations had generated, but the operations were legal, defensible, built on contracts instead of coercion. Celina threw herself into the transition with obsessive focus. She understood corporate structures in ways Min-Jae's criminal organization never had. She rebuilt the financial infrastructure, established legitimate partnerships with banks that had previously refused to work with the Kang family, created a public relations strategy that slowly rehabilitated their reputation. It was the hardest work she'd ever done, and it felt like redemption. Ji-yoon recovered from her injuries and became an unexpected ally in the transition. She'd always wanted the family to go legitimate, but had never believed it was possible. Now, watching her brother actually commit to the change, she dedicated herself to making it succeed. I'm proud of you, Ji-yoon told Min-Jae one afternoon while they reviewed acquisition proposals for a legitimate casino operation in Atlantic City. Not because you're making more money, but because you're finally building something that won't require explaining to your children someday. Min-Jae smiled. Small. Genuine. Celina's influence. I know, Ji-yoon said. That's what makes it even better. The investigation into Richard Arden's empire concluded with multiple federal charges. Celina's father went to trial, was convicted, and received a 7-year prison sentence. Her mother divorced him immediately, remarried a venture capitalist within 6 months, and never spoke to Celina again. Celina attended her father's sentencing, sat in the back of the courtroom while the judge read the verdict, watched her father, the man who'd raised her to believe emotions were weakness and strategy was everything, break down crying as he realized he'd destroyed everything he'd built. She felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not grief, just the recognition that some people's empires collapsed while others adapted and survived. After the sentencing, Richard Arden was led away in handcuffs. He didn't look at Celina, didn't acknowledge her presence. Maybe he blamed her for not saving him. Maybe he finally understood she'd never been his daughter. Just another asset in a portfolio that had finally gone bankrupt. 6 months after Dmitry Volkov died in a burning warehouse, Kang Min-Jae and Celina Kang stood on the rooftop of their new headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. The building was legitimate, purchased through proper channels, financed through legal means, housing operations that would survive scrutiny from any federal investigation. Below them, Manhattan glittered with evening light. The city that had nearly killed them both now felt like something they could actually exist in without constantly looking over their shoulders. We did it, Celina said quietly. Most of it, Min-Jae corrected. There are still elements of the old operation that need to be severed, connections that take time to untangle. But yeah, we're close. Close enough. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Min-Jae pulled something from his pocket, a small box. What's this? Celina asked. Open it. Inside was a ring, Not the simple platinum band he'd given her during their courthouse wedding. This one was elegant, detailed, the kind of ring someone bought when they were choosing a partner instead of executing a strategy. "I know we're already married," Min-Jae said quietly, "but that ceremony was about survival, about alliances and power plays and desperate gambits. This ring is about something else." "What?" "Choice." Min-Jae took the ring from the box and held it between them. 3 weeks ago, you didn't choose me. You chose survival, but we're not fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for something better. So I'm asking you now, when you have every reason to walk away and start over somewhere safe, do you choose this? Choose us? Celina looked at the ring, then at Min-Jae, then at the city sprawling below them. She thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, trapped in her parents' expectations, dating a man who saw her as a resource instead of a person, living a life that looked perfect on the outside while rotting from within. That woman was gone. The woman standing on this rooftop had killed a man, had survived torture, had watched people die defending an empire she'd helped build from blood and strategy. She was harder now, scarier, capable of terrible things, but she was also free. "Yes," Celina said, "I choose this. I choose us." Min-Jae slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, like it had been designed specifically for the person she'd become instead of the person she used to be. They kissed while Manhattan pulsed below them, and the future stretched out in directions neither of them could predict, but both were willing to face together. When they finally broke apart, Celina rested her forehead against Min-Jae's. "Promise me something," she said quietly. "What?" "That we'll never forget what it cost to get here. The people who died, the choices we made, the parts of ourselves we sacrificed. Promise me we'll honor that by making sure it wasn't for nothing." "I promise," Min-Jae said. "We'll build something worth the cost, something that matters." Good. They stood on that rooftop until the sun set completely and Manhattan transformed into a constellation of lights. Below them, millions of people lived their lives completely unaware that 2 people above them had just decided to try being better than the monsters the world had demanded they become. It wasn't redemption, it wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings were enough. 3 years later, Celina Kang stood in front of a different mirror in a different apartment that she and Min-Jae had purchased together. She was 37 weeks pregnant, exhausted, terrified, excited. Their daughter would be born in 3 weeks. They'd already chosen a name. Maya. Strong, simple. A name that didn't carry the weight of empires or criminal legacies. Min-Jae appeared behind her in the mirror, his hand settling gently on her swollen stomach. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Like I'm about to bring a life into a world that might still have people who want to hurt us. We've dealt with every credible threat. The Volkov remnants were absorbed or eliminated. Our transition to legitimate business is complete. We're as safe as anyone in our position can be." "But not completely safe." "No," Min-Jae admitted. "Never completely safe. But safe enough to give our daughter a chance at something better than we had." Celina covered his hands with hers. "Do you think we're ready for this?" "No, but I don't think anyone's ever really ready to be a parent. You just do your best and hope it's enough." "That's terrifying." "Everything worth doing is terrifying." Celina turned in his arms, her pregnant stomach pressing against him. "Promise me we'll tell her the truth. When she's old enough. About where we came from, what we did, the cost of building what we built." "Why?" "Because she deserves to know that choices matter, that transformation is possible, and that the people who love her were once monsters who decided to be something else." Min-Jae was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay. When she's old enough, we'll tell her everything." "Thank you." They stood in their apartment overlooking a city that had tried to kill them both and failed. And somewhere in Celina's chest, the woman who'd walked into the Pierre Hotel wearing neon cargo pants as rebellion finally laid down to rest. She'd served her purpose, made room for someone stronger, someone scarier, someone capable of surviving in a world designed to break her. And now that survival was complete, she could finally transform one last time into the person she'd always been meant to become. Not a trophy wife, not a corporate analyst, not a monster. Just Celina Kang. A woman who'd chosen her own path and paid the price willingly. And that in the end was the only victory that mattered.